ngusebenzele Thixo samandla ngicela uzwe imthandazo yami nami ngicela ukuba lento zami lo mhlaba ngusebenzele ungikhumbule nami enqaba yami ungikhumbule nami enqaba yami ngizophendula imthandazo usiza abantwana bakho ungikhumbule nami enqaba yami ungikhumbule nami enqaba yami ngizophendula imthandazo usiza abantwana bakho into zami mina labangane bami baba imthandazo yami lo mhlaba ngusebenzele
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Morris Talk Live 100. I'm your host, Amana Elbay. And tonight, the truth about our ancient people around the world. We're going to deal with that this evening. But before we go down into the broadcast, I'm going to go to the commercial. So y'all hold on a minute. We'll be right back.
Let me make sure I got this one right also. Someone tells you that you must pay them money about your children in the form of child support. They also say they would suspend your driver's license. And they said they would garnish your wages. Who were they talking to? A debtor? Or did they make the mistake and say it to a creditor? When you got married, they said it was a part of that also. Request my free report at thehuckadidelimination.org. That's thehuckadidelimination.org. Let's have some fun. Fill out the contact us form for my free report, and I'll rush it straight to your email box. What about this banking stuff? What's going on in the United States? I tell you what, request my free report at thehuckadidelimination.org. Peace. Okay, everybody, October the 26th, right here in Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida, the Black Vegan Fest will take place. live bands, live entertainment. Professional chefs will teach you how to cook healthy. If you are a vendor, go to www.urbangeoponics.org and sign up. Bring your fishing gear with you if you're a fisherman. We got the river right in the back of the property. We'll teach you how to grow your own food. Teach your children how to do the same thing. You'll learn how to prepare meals healthy. There'll be fun and games for the whole family. October the 26th, the Black Vegan Fest right here in Jacksonville, Florida. Don't miss it. Make sure you got some cash with you because vendors will be on hand and they'll be selling their wares. October the 26th, the Black Vegan Fest right here, Jacksonville, Florida. Don't miss it. Be here.
All right, now we're back. Now, as far as I'm concerned, and this is my position, how far across the earth does our ancient story go? What type of destruction has been used against us? When were we a prosperous nation of people? Where are our communities located in America today? What are the solutions to our problems today? These are the questions that I'm going to attempt to answer. I won't be able to answer it all straight off the top of my head. You don't want that anyway. What we're going to do is bring in the most prosperous and most vital information, in my opinion, that we can bring across to deal with it from every conceivable angle. As far as the truth about our ancient people around the world, I personally feel like if you had a gigantic scroll, first of all, it would take several buildings to house that one scroll, and roll it across the world. It'll go around the world, and probably you won't even see no land anymore. This is far back as our ancient story go, back in the past, as far as I can see, based on the information that I got, it is beyond imagination. We're talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. And what I'm going to do is do the best that I can to deal with just a few of these 100 years or 1,000 years. I'm going to do the best I can because if I go back so far back, it'll be so incredible in my personal opinion, I'll lose a lot of people. I don't want to lose nobody. So I'm going to do the best I can. Now, why is it that us as a people, so-called, it's with Moors, black, Negro, colored, African American, all the negative terms. What is it about this particular people that the world is against? Why us? I mean, okay, now you got, let me look right here, right now. You got 10 places on this earth you cannot go without experiencing racism. Number 1, Saudi Arabia. Number 2, Japan. Number 3, India. Number 4, South Korea. Number 5, Israel. 6, Ukraine. 7, Greece. 8, Italy. 9, China. And 10, Russia. Don't book no trips there, going there, trying to learn nothing, or see nothing, or be on a vacation about nothing. Don't do that. Don't go to these places, okay? Because you're not going to, I mean, if you're on some type of vacation somewhere, you going to see and have a good time and wherever, and these are not all the places, but these are the main ones not to go to, okay? And there is a reason why you are despised and rejected. And what we want to do tonight is find out why. What is it about me and you who look like me? What is it about us? What is it? I mean, why would you hate me to the point you would burn down the house, kill the mama, kill the dad, kill the elderly, kill the children, murder everybody, and turn around, steal everything about me? Why is it that when I come out and start dancing, you try to imitate me? Why is it that when I come out and start singing, you try to sound like me? Why is it that when I start talking, you try to sound like me? What is it? What, man, why would you hate me and turn around and go out on the beach and lay out in the hot sun and get blisters and burns and gotta put on lotion so you can be dark like me? What is it about me? What kind of people on this earth would do such a thing? What is the problem? What is it? I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to start right here. What is it that will cause you to attack my character? What? Here we go. Let's try to get some answers. Y'all hold on a minute.
Welcome, the anointed ones. Jealousy is a disease, and those infected will try to poison anyone who radiates strength. Imagine walking into a room minding your own business, and the air shifts, the whispers, the sneers, the judgment. It's palpable. You've done nothing wrong, but you feel the weight of eyes on you, heavy with resentment. The truth? They don't hate you. They envy what they can never possess. Studies show that envy is often directed at those who embody traits others secretly wish they had. And for those of us labeled the chosen ones, the attacks don't just come out of nowhere. They come from those threatened by your light, by the power you hold, by the sheer audacity of your growth. They did you dirty, but here's what they didn't expect: your comeback. Number 1. Your strength illuminates their weakness. When people attack your character, it's often not about anything you've done, but about what you represent. Your strength highlights their weaknesses. Every success you achieve, every time you stand tall, it reminds them of where they fall short. It's not the fact that you've succeeded. It's that your success magnifies what they've failed to accomplish. This can be unsettling for people who are already insecure or dissatisfied with their own lives. Deep down, they see in you the qualities they wish they had: resilience, courage, authenticity. But rather than striving to cultivate these traits in themselves, they choose the easier path, tearing you down. It's not that they truly despise you. They despise what you reflect back at them. Your determination and progress are a direct contrast to their stagnation, and that makes them uncomfortable. Attacking you becomes a way for them to cope with their own feelings of inadequacy. It's easier for them to believe that there's something wrong with you than to confront what's missing in themselves. They'll question your motives, your integrity, and your character, all to make themselves feel better. It's a distraction, a smokescreen for their own shortcomings. Your strength is unsettling to those who feel powerless in their own lives, and by attacking you, they think they can diminish your light. What they don't realize is that by focusing on you, they're actually admitting something about themselves. They can't ignore you. You've become a reminder that they could be more, and that kind of reflection is hard to face. In attacking you, they're revealing just how much your strength affects them. You're a mirror they can't avoid, and that's why they lash out. Number 2, they try to soil what they can't achieve. When someone can't achieve what you've accomplished, they often resort to tearing it down. It's a twisted form of self-preservation. If they can't rise to your level, they'll try to drag you down to theirs. You've probably noticed this pattern with people who seem to criticize everything you do, regardless of how well you're doing. The truth is, it's not about your mistakes or flaws. It's about them feeling inadequate in comparison to you. Rather than striving for more, they focus their energy on discrediting your achievements. This isn't always obvious, though. It can come in subtle forms: backhanded compliments, passive-aggressive remarks, or undermining your efforts in sneaky ways. They might even rally others to their cause, trying to paint you as someone undeserving of your success. The logic is simple. If they can convince others you're not worthy, it helps them justify why they haven't achieved what you have. It's a defense mechanism, a way to protect their ego from the reality that they haven't done the work to get where you are. What they fail to understand is that diminishing you doesn't elevate them. No matter how much mud they sling, it doesn't change the fact that you've earned what you have. Their jealousy blinds them to the simple truth: success isn't limited. Just because you've reached a certain level doesn't mean they can't too. But envy doesn't see possibility. It only sees what it lacks. Ultimately, their attempts to destroy what they can't achieve reflect their own inner struggle. It's easier for them to criticize than to put in the effort. And by choosing the path of tearing you down, they only trap themselves in their own limitations. You, however, continue to rise. Number 3, their betrayal is a confession. Betrayal isn't just about broken trust. It's a reflection of the betrayer's inner turmoil. When people betray you, they aren't just turning their back on you. They're revealing how threatened they are by your authenticity. It's a confession, loud and clear. They see something in you, something real, something strong that makes them uncomfortable because it exposes the parts of themselves they've been hiding or ignoring. Think about it. Betrayal doesn't happen in a vacuum. It often comes from those who are closest to you, those who've seen your journey up close. They've watched your struggles, your growth, and your strength. For some, witnessing that can stir up deep feelings of inadequacy or resentment. They don't betray you out of nowhere. It's usually building up over time. Your success or resilience starts to make them feel smaller in comparison, and instead of facing their own insecurities, they choose to lash out. It's easier for them to blame you, to frame you as the problem, than to look at the parts of themselves they're unhappy with. Betrayal often has nothing to do with what you've done wrong. It's about what you represent. Your ability to be real, to stand tall, to live in your truth. It challenges the version of themselves they're presenting to the world. Maybe they've built their life on half-truths or facades, and being around someone like you makes those cracks impossible to ignore. So they act out, hoping that by betraying you, they can distance themselves from that uncomfortable mirror you hold up. But in doing so, they aren't betraying your trust as much as they're betraying their own character. They show you who they really are, while you continue standing in your truth, unshaken. Number 4, they fear your evolution. People don't attack you because of who you are right now. They attack you because of who you're becoming. That's what really scares them. It's your growth, your potential, the things you're on the verge of accomplishing. They can sense that you're evolving into something bigger, something they can't control or predict. And that's where the fear comes from. It's not your present self that threatens them. It's the version of you that's still unfolding, the one they can't keep up with. Your progress becomes a reminder to them of everything they haven't done, of all the ways they've stayed stuck. Every step forward you take feels like you're leaving them behind, and instead of growing with you, they'd rather hold you back. So they attack. They try to stop you before you fully step into your power, hoping to stunt your evolution. The irony is, their attempts to pull you down often push you even further ahead. It's not just your success that worries them. It's the fact that they can't predict or contain you anymore. You're moving into spaces they don't understand or control. People like stability, predictability. It makes them feel safe. When you start to break out of the mold, it unsettles them. They don't know how to react, so they lash out, hoping that their attacks will make you second-guess yourself, hoping that their negativity will slow you down. But their fear of your growth isn't something you should take personally. It's a reflection of their own limitations, their own fear of change. They want to keep you where they feel comfortable, because your evolution makes them confront their own stagnation. What they fail to realize is that you're not stopping. You're becoming something they can't even comprehend, and that's what terrifies them the most. Number 5. They weaponize your past to sabotage your future. When people attack you, one of their favorite weapons is your past. They'll dig up things you did long ago, hoping to use it against you. It's not that they have any genuine interest in those moments. They just don't know how to deal with who you are now. Your present success, growth, or transformation is threatening to them, so they reach for what's familiar, your past mistakes. It's an attempt to discredit your progress, to make others and even you doubt how far you've come. But here's what they don't get. Your past is part of what made you who you are today. Those mistakes, those hardships, they didn't break you, they shaped you. So when they try to use your past as a weapon, they're actually showing their own desperation. They can't compete with the current version of you, so they're clinging to a version of you that no longer exists. What they don't understand is that your past doesn't have the power to define you anymore. You've already learned from it, grown from it, and moved on. The only people stuck in those moments are the ones trying to drag them into your present. It's a distraction tactic. If they can keep you focused on who you were, maybe they can keep you from stepping fully into who you're becoming. Their strategy is flawed, though. By bringing up your past, they only highlight how much you've evolved. They think they're exposing your weaknesses. But what they're really doing is showing how much stronger you've become. Your past isn't a weapon against you. It's proof that you've already overcome more than they could ever throw at you. And that's why their attacks will always fall short. Number 6, your boundaries are unforgivable to the insecure. People get angry when you set boundaries, especially those who once benefited from your lack of them. When you finally decide to stand up for yourself and protect your energy, it feels like a personal attack to those who have been exploiting your kindness or taking advantage of your time. They aren't upset because your boundaries are unreasonable. They're upset because you've stopped allowing them to use you. Setting boundaries shines a light on their intentions. Suddenly they're forced to confront how they've been treating you. When you refuse to let them overstep, it exposes their behavior for what it is, manipulative and self-serving. This is why your boundaries are unforgivable to people who don't have your best interests at heart. To them, your refusal to bend means they're losing control over you, and that's the real issue. What's more, boundaries don't just protect you from others. They also force people to reevaluate their own lives. When you stand firm in your value and say no to being mistreated or taken for granted, it sends a message. It shows that you know your worth, and that makes people who are insecure about their own lives uncomfortable. It's a reflection of what they aren't doing for themselves. So instead of respecting your space, they attack you for it, hoping to make you feel guilty or selfish. But here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting what matters. And the people who react negatively to your boundaries are the ones who never had your best interests in mind to begin with. By standing your ground, you aren't just protecting yourself, you're exposing the people who only saw you as someone to be used. And while they may not like it, you're better off without them. Number 7. Attacks are invitations to level up. Every time someone attacks you, they unknowingly hand you an opportunity to grow. It's ironic, really. What they intend as harm often becomes the very catalyst for your elevation. Attacks, whether they come in the form of criticism, betrayal, or sabotage, aren't just obstacles. They're chances to refine yourself. The more intense the attack, the greater the potential for transformation. It's like pressure on coal. Without it, there's no diamond. When someone targets you, it forces you to evaluate, adapt, and strengthen your defenses. You become sharper, more resilient, and more self-aware. The resistance you face is essential to your evolution. Without it, there would be no growth. Challenges push you out of your comfort zone, forcing you to dig deeper, think harder, and rise above. In essence, every attack becomes a training ground for your next level. What your attackers don't realize is that by coming for you, they're giving you the tools to become even stronger. Their efforts to break you down only build you up. It's in these moments of struggle that you find your true power. You learn not only how to withstand the hits, but how to use them to your advantage. The very thing they throw at you becomes the fuel for your ascension. And when you come out on the other side, wiser, stronger, and more determined, they're left wondering how their attempts to destroy you only pushed you further ahead. The truth is, their attacks are never about you. They're about their own limitations. But in trying to limit you, they unintentionally elevate you. You level up because of the resistance, not despite it. That's the beautiful irony. They become the unwitting architects of your rise. Number 8, they are obsessed with your light. When people are obsessed with your light, it's not always because of what you've accomplished. It's because of something deeper, something they can't quite grasp. They're drawn to your energy, your inner strength, and the way you carry yourself. It's not about money, status, or outward success. It's about the light you radiate from within. That light can't be measured or touched, and that's what frustrates them the most. They can't figure out how to dim it or replicate it, and that leaves them feeling powerless. Your light doesn't come from external validation. You don't rely on applause, approval, or praise to keep shining. That's why their attacks fall flat. They think that by criticizing or undermining you, they can somehow make you doubt yourself. But what they don't realize is that your sense of self-worth comes from a place they can't reach. It's internal, rooted in who you are, not in what the world thinks of you. This confuses and irritates them. They can't understand how you keep going, how you stay strong, even when they try to bring you down. To them, everything is about external achievement. They believe success is what gives you value. But you know better. Your light is innate, born from your experiences, your resilience, and your inner peace. It's something they can never take from you because it doesn't depend on anything they can touch. Their obsession with your light reveals more about them than it does about you. It shows how lost they are in their own need for validation. And while they waste energy trying to extinguish your flame, you keep shining unaffected because you're fueled by something far more powerful than anything they could ever understand or control. Number 9. Your silence is their worst nightmare. When faced with attacks, your silence becomes your strongest weapon. Those who aim to undermine you are often seeking a reaction, a way to draw you into their drama and validate their own feelings of superiority. They want to provoke you, to see you rattle or stumble, believing that your discomfort will give them the upper hand. But when you refuse to engage, you take away the very power they're trying to exert over you. Your silence sends a powerful message. You won't be dragged down to their level. It shows that you're not interested in their games or their negativity. Instead of responding with anger or frustration, you rise above, choosing to focus on your own growth and goals. While they're busy trying to provoke a reaction, you're busy building a life that doesn't include their toxic energy. In doing so, you rob them of their satisfaction and control. This refusal to engage leaves them fighting shadows. They're left alone with their insecurities, wondering why their attempts to rattle you haven't worked. Their frustration mounts as they realize that their words have no impact on your sense of self. You remain unbothered, and that's what terrifies them. Your calmness in the face of their attacks highlights their volatility, exposing the hollowness of their attempts to tear you down. Moreover, silence can often be more telling than any words. It communicates confidence and strength, a clear indication that you recognize your worth and won't be swayed by their negativity. While they're consumed by their futile efforts, you're quietly thriving, transforming every attack into a stepping stone for your own ascension. In the end, your silence isn't just a lack of response. It's a declaration of independence from their chaos, a reminder that your journey is yours alone, unaffected by their need for drama. Number 10. Their attacks confirm your significance. Every attack directed at you serves as a powerful confirmation of your significance. If you were irrelevant or weak, people wouldn't bother trying to undermine you. The very fact that they invest their energy into belittling you highlights that you are a force to be reckoned with, someone whose presence disrupts their comfort zone. They are threatened by your achievements, your confidence, and the light you bring into the world. Their attempts to tear you down stem from a deep-seated fear that your strength reflects their weaknesses. It's easier for them to lash out than to confront their own shortcomings. By trying to diminish you, they believe they can elevate themselves, even if just for a moment. This obsession with your downfall reveals just how much you matter, more than they would ever openly admit. In a world that often rewards mediocrity, your willingness to rise above and pursue greatness makes you a target. You challenge the status quo and inspire others to do the same. Your very existence is a reminder that change is possible, and that's something they can't tolerate. They'd rather focus on tearing you down than face the reality that they're not living up to their potential. This dynamic creates a unique situation. Their attacks inadvertently validate your importance. When you're under fire, it's a signal that you're on the right track, that you're doing something meaningful. Instead of viewing their hostility as a setback, recognize it as proof that you're making waves. You matter, and your journey is impactful enough to elicit fear and resentment from those who feel threatened. So, let their attacks serve as a badge of honor. They confirm that you are significant, a force that challenges the complacency of those around you. Instead of being discouraged, use their negativity as motivation to continue shining your light and pursuing your path, knowing that your impact is undeniable. Number 11. They underestimate the depth of your resilience. What your attackers fail to grasp is that every blow they deliver only serves to strengthen your resolve. They see you as someone who should be easily rattled, not realizing that you are not built from fragile material. You are forged in adversity. Each challenge you face has added layers to your resilience, making you harder to break than they could ever anticipate. They expect you to crumble under pressure, to falter when they unleash their negativity. But what they don't understand is that every hit you take reinforces your foundation. You've already faced hardships that have taught you invaluable lessons, shaping you into someone who knows how to rise after a fall. Your experiences have equipped you with a depth of strength that can't be easily shaken. Each attack they throw your way becomes a catalyst for growth. Instead of seeing you fall apart, they should recognize the truth. You've built a fortress around your spirit, a resilience that only deepens with every challenge. You've learned to channel adversity into fuel for your ascent, transforming setbacks into stepping stones. Your attackers underestimate your ability to bounce back. They might think their words or actions can break you, but in reality, they're just adding to the arsenal of experiences that have made you stronger. Each blow becomes a lesson in perseverance, a reminder that you can withstand more than they'll ever comprehend. What they view as weaknesses, you recognize as opportunities for growth. You don't just survive their attacks, you thrive in spite of them. Their misunderstanding of your resilience is a significant miscalculation. They're not just attacking you. They're inadvertently helping you fortify your spirit, preparing you for greater challenges ahead. In the end, it's their underestimation that will lead to their own downfall, while you continue to rise, unbreakable and more formidable than ever. Number 12. The comeback is always unseen. For those who launch attacks against you, the hardest truth to swallow is that your comeback will never resemble their notion of revenge. Instead of plotting against them or stooping to their level, your resurgence will manifest as success, a quiet, powerful transformation that speaks volumes about your strength and resilience. They want to see you falter, to wallow in despair. Yet when you rise again, it won't be with bitterness or hostility. It will be with grace, determination, and a focus on your own path. Their attacks are often rooted in jealousy, a projection of their insecurities. They believe they can derail your journey, but what they fail to realize is that every attempt to diminish you only adds fuel to your fire. You will come back stronger than ever, but it won't be in the way they expect. They anticipate a dramatic confrontation, a public showdown where you lash out and seek to reclaim your dignity. Instead, you'll show them that the true power lies in your ability to move forward, to flourish, and to pursue your passions undeterred by their negativity. As you thrive, they will be left in disbelief, grappling with the reality that their efforts to bring you down have only propelled you higher. Their jealousy will consume them as they watch you achieve milestones they once thought were beyond your reach. Your success will serve as a testament to your resilience, a living example that their attempts were futile. While they remain stuck in their bitterness, you will continue to climb, leaving behind the shadows of their envy. In the end, your comeback will be a reminder that real strength doesn't seek revenge, it seeks elevation. Your journey will illuminate the path for others, showcasing that true power comes from rising above the noise and focusing on your own growth. As they watch you succeed, they'll be faced with the harsh reality. They underestimated you, and now they have to reckon with the consequences of their own jealousy. In the intricate dance of life, the attacks you face serve not as barriers, but as stepping stones to your greater self. Each blow reveals the insecurities of those who throw them, shining a light on their fears while illuminating the depth of your resilience. You emerge not as a victim, but as a beacon, a testament to the strength that lies within you. Your silence transforms their noise into a whisper, and your unwavering focus on success turns their attempts at sabotage into fuel for your ascent. As you navigate this journey, remember that every challenge is an invitation to level up. Your light, which they envy but cannot dim, becomes a guiding force, propelling you forward even when they wish to see you falter. Their need to attack only confirms your significance, proving that your presence is a force that cannot be ignored. And while they remain trapped in their jealousy, fixated on bringing you down, you continue to thrive, crafting a comeback that leaves them in disbelief. Ultimately, your story is one of transformation and triumph. It's a powerful reminder that true strength is not defined by how you react to adversity, but by how you rise above it. Each success you achieve echoes back to the doubts and attacks, affirming that you are unbreakable. You have the power to shape your destiny, and with every step forward you not only redefine your journey, but inspire others to do the same. So let the world watch as you ascend, unbothered by their noise, unwavering in your purpose. Embrace the challenges, celebrate your victories, and know that your light will shine brighter than ever, illuminating the path for those who dare to follow. Your journey is just beginning, and it promises to be extraordinary. Keep rising, for the best is yet to come. If you found inspiration in this message, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and join our community. Your support helps us spread this empowering message further. Don't forget to like this video and share it with anyone who needs a reminder of their strength. We want to hear from you, so please leave your comments below. Together, let's uplift one another and continue on this journey of growth. Thank you for being here.
I don't vote for presidents because presidents are selected, not elected. I have a new video coming out very soon, which is going to teach you how the Electoral College actually works. And you'll discover that your vote for presidents means absolutely nothing. Zero, because you don't pick a president. The Electoral College picks the president. And several times in history have the general population picked and voted for whoever the candidate that they wanted, and that candidate didn't win even though they won the vote of the people, because the Electoral College, and we don't even know who the hell these people are, picked who the establishment wanted. It's happened several times. The Electoral College, which I'll be doing that whole video very soon, it's a huge farce, and even politicians have been trying to get it shut down and changed, but the powers that be just won't let that go, because hey, we got to control the situation. We got to control the puppets, and presidents are all puppets. I don't care who the hell they are. That's why every 4 years I vote for myself. I put my name on the blank ballot and drop it right in the box, and I become the president every 4 years, and I renew my presidency over myself and my family. And if everyone took that mentality, this whole world would change overnight.
Comment, like, follow, and share for more forbidden knowledge.
about our ancient people around the world. Let's find out where they are, or where they was in the beginning. Let's find out. We're gonna deal with our ancient people around the world. Okay. Let's go over here to China and see what's over in there.
When you think about ancient China, black people probably aren't on the top of the list of related topics. As crazy as it sounds, though, Africa and China have a long history together and a complicated relationship. In fact, roughly 1/5 of the people living in China today can trace their lineage to Africa. Welcome to Crazy Histories, where we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history. Some of the things discussed in this video may be offensive or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Pre-African slavery. Some scholars believe that the first people to be in China were black. They claim that they weren't of African origin, but a different ancient black culture that spanned all across Southeast Asia. There is some evidence to support the idea that these people existed, though it's hard to say if they were really the first people there or not. Ancient skeletons have been found in southern China that bear a striking resemblance to those found in Central Africa. However, the DNA is different enough to show that they weren't all that closely related. There is also evidence from a book from the early 500s CE. This talks about the Three Kingdoms period in China, which was around 250 CE, and in it is mentioned a group of people in China called the Black Dwarfs. Today they are called diminutive Africoids, and are also known as Pygmies, Negritos, and Eta. This also backs up the claim that there was a black civilization spanning across Southeast Asia, because there's evidence of them in the Philippines, northern Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and many other places in this area. In recent years, geneticists have done studies on both the skeletal remains of these people and also the people that still live in these remote areas. What they have found is that they are the direct descendants of the first modern humans to have inhabited Asia. Since then, even more groups like this have been identified in Japan, India, and Vietnam. It is clear that there was a black civilization across prehistoric southern Asia, but particularly in southern China. We don't know what happened to these groups. Clearly, some interbred with other groups in the same area. That is how we have the Chinese population that is around today. But what happened to the rest of them? Did they die out from disease or fighting? Was there some sort of natural disaster that killed many of them off? Or did none of that happen and they all intermingled with other groups to evolve? We will likely never know. The next time black people are seen in ancient China begins several hundred years later in the early 7th century CE. That is when China began to trade with Eastern Africa. From there, the relationship between the two cultures grew. There was even more trade, and eventually more people began to migrate from one place to the other. Slavery in ancient China. Starting in the 7th century, Arab slave traders began to sell African slaves to the Tang dynasty in China. Those dark-skinned slaves became known as Kunlun, and this is where many long-lasting stereotypes began. The Chinese considered the Africans to be dumber, scarier, more dangerous, and of lower class than the native Chinese. This had long-lasting effects, and this prejudice can still be seen today. Modern Chinese people generally consider pale skin to be the ideal. The darker someone's skin, the less virtuous they must be. The stereotypes were easily spread because most Chinese people at the time had never met a black person. They were only able to rely on rumors. African slaves were more rare, which made them more expensive than other slaves. That means that only the ultra-wealthy Chinese people that could afford to buy the African slaves actually interacted with them. To everyone else, the Africans just became scary boogie monster rumors. Some slave owners even referred to the Kunlun as devil slaves or wild men, so it's not hard to guess where the fear of them came from. In some stories, though, the Kunlun were shown as the resourceful hero. There is no real reason as to why this is the case, but it does create an interesting dynamic between the two very different viewpoints. Just like the bad stereotypes came from few people ever knowing a Kunlun, this difference of opinion probably came about because so few Chinese people actually saw and met Africans. Over time, the needs of the wealthy slave owners grew and changed, and so the nature of slavery changed too. During the Song dynasty, which began in the mid-10th century, African slaves were captured in war or brought in by the Arabs on a higher scale. and it became much more common for the average Chinese person to see them. By this time, the view of the Kunlun changed. They were no longer treated so much as threats, and were instead seen more like displaced people. They didn't get any sympathy for that fact, though. They were still treated poorly and looked down on. Instead of being as fearful, though, they were called savage for not changing their ways to adopt Chinese customs, and the African languages were usually described as unintelligible. As can be said for slaves during every time period and in every corner of the earth, the Kunlun slaves were treated terribly by their masters. Before they even got to China, they had to survive the long and dangerous journey across land and sea. They had to hope that the ship would not wreck, that they'd survive from the poor food quality, and that they would not contract a disease from the close quarters. Then, once they made it to China and their destination, they had to deal with being exposed to new illnesses, both from the new people they were around and from the new cuisine that their bodies were not used to. Sometimes the African slaves would be lucky, if you can really use that word to describe any slave, and would be assigned to be a doorman. In this role, they would also double as a sort of art piece to show the immense wealth of their owners. Because the journey from Africa was so dangerous, the Kunlun were rare and therefore far more expensive than other slaves in the Chinese world. They weren't always so lucky, though. The ancient Chinese believed that the African people were supernaturally strong, and so they could have been forced to do any number of hard labor jobs with few breaks. These jobs could include, but were not limited to, field work, moving heavy goods from place to place, ship repairs, and working on the docks. It's pretty clear that the ancient Chinese had no moral qualms about treating others like this. At the time, it was a part of the culture to keep highly detailed notes about happenings. This was especially true if something happened that was out of the ordinary. Despite this, there is no record that slave owners questioned if slavery was moral or not. Free Africans. The Kunlun were not the only black people in ancient China. There was also a huge amount of other trade happening with Africa. This means that free black people were coming and going quite frequently. Luckily for these traders, they were viewed in a completely different light than the Kunlun. Since the merchants brought necessities and other expensive goods, they were treated with high levels of respect and were given great honors. One example of this is an African merchant named Zhen Tiang. In 1071, he made a trip to China to do business. Much to his surprise, he and his companions were received by the emperor at the time and were treated like ambassadors, not like traders. Zhen Tiang and his party were given expensive gifts like white gold. They were fed lavish feasts, and Zhen Tiang was even given the title of the Lord Guardian of Prosperity. All this despite just being a merchant group. We don't know why Zhen Tiang received this sort of treatment, but it is probably because of the riches and the profitable goods that traders from Africa could bring to China. It was a symbol, and Zhen Tiang was just lucky to be the African to benefit from it. By the 11th century, there were huge amounts of highly valued goods coming to China from all over Africa. Frankincense, powdered rhinoceros horn, tortoiseshell, and ivory are just a few examples. Eventually, trade slowed between the two places with the Silk Road and the rise of European powers. Instead of trading directly with each other, they preferred to trade with Europe. The relationship still existed, just on a much smaller scale, which eventually led to their relationship today. Still, dark skin is viewed as less ideal than light skin. Do you think this is a holdover belief that started with the Kunlun and that has lasted 1,400 years? Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to get similar content.
All right, everybody, we're back. Now, once again, I want to ask you, how far across the earth does our ancient story go? What type of destruction has been used against us? When were we a prosperous nation of people? Where are our communities today in America, and what are the solutions to the problem? Let's start with the last one first. Okay, we're going to deal with the last question first, and then we're going on down into this thing because we have a lot to deliver here this evening. Okay? Hold on.
World. In other words, brothers and sisters, there is no one to save us but us. In case no one told you this, I'm telling you this. They told me. They thought I was white. So, you know, Dr. Fraser, I was at an all-white event. I'm sort of, like, maybe God put me here as a spy, a double agent. We will not be saving black people. No. In fact, white folks are not even thinking about black people. Do you know what white folks are thinking about? They're thinking about white folks. They're thinking about their children, their wives, their husbands, their communities, their businesses, their educational system. They're not thinking about you. I had a good white friend who said to me not long ago, he said, George, I know the problem with black people. I said, oh, really? Really, Bob? What might that be? He said, you spend all your time thinking about us, and we don't spend any of our time thinking about you. Therefore, if you're not thinking about you, and we damn sure ain't thinking about you, who's thinking about you? Well, I had to do a Holy Ghost dance. I had no response. Sometimes I feel that we are searching for a key to an unlocked door.
Hello guys, welcome to the channel. I hope
Okay, we're back. Now, what we want to do here now is we want to look at some things. Okay? Now, every once in a while we catch a glimpse of us as a people being global, worldwide. Every once in a while, a little something pops up about us being the original people in the place. Now, we done dealt with China, and now we're going to go to another place. After we go there, we're going to go to another place, and after we go there, we're going to look at where we were, because all of this ties back into the original information that we put out here tonight about your envy and jealous and all of that. You will understand. I'm trying to get you to understand why is it that you are rejected worldwide. We done already put that out at the top of this broadcast. But let's take a look at some of the other places that you were and what you did, which may explain why is it that the way you talk, somebody want to talk like you. When you dance, they don't feel like they could be creative enough, because every time you come out, you the ultimate. You know, your singing voice, your appearance, your dance, and then you get on down into the sports and all that, got all that like that. Who and what are you? I mean, it's not for you to say, well, I don't think I should be singled out as something special. Well, you know doggone well that you're special. But that don't mean you should suffer because of it. Now, that's just my personal opinion. Let's take a trip.
I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. Welcome to the Black Excellence and Abundance Channel. A little known fact, which I believe is deliberately ignored by modern anthropologists and historians, is that the natives of Hawaii, America's 50th state, were black people whose ancestral roots extended back to the continent of Africa. The story of black Hawaiians is one of the most intriguing of modern times. It is a tale of adventure and delight in paradise that turned into a cultural nightmare. It is one of America's best-kept secrets, and we must venture into antiquity to learn the roots of the Black Hawaiians. This black culture once brightened the Pacific for over 2,000 years. Most anthropologists, paleontologists, and archaeologists around the world generally believe that human beings evolved on the continent of Africa from 3 to 5 million years ago, and that they eventually spread from Africa into Europe, Asia, the Pacific Islands, and finally the Americas. In time, these black settlers developed very advanced societies and sent navigators to explore and settle various islands of the Pacific Ocean. They reached such places as New Guinea, Fiji, New Hebrides, New Zealand, the Society Islands, Tahiti, Easter Island, and thousands more. The first people to reach what is now Hawaii were blacks from Polynesia. They sailed to Hawaii in great canoes about 2,000 years ago. The Hawaiians and their neighbors in the Pacific have long been the subject of controversy among scientists. The people in this part of the world are generally divided into three groups: Melanesians, who are an unmixed black people, Micronesians, which is also an ancient black group, and the Aboriginal Polynesians. All three groups are black people. The black people themselves are an ethnological puzzle. Many, like the Tasmanians, who were exterminated by English settlers, were pure blacks. The basic strain of the original Hawaiians, as seen in their color and their faces, writes historian J.A. Rogers in the book Sex and Race, Negro-Caucasian Mixing in All Ages and All Lands, was undoubtedly Negro, with an admixture of Mongolian. These people were of black and brown complexions with wavy and close-curled hair, broad facial features, and fine physiques. In short, they had the same physical characteristics as millions of other people who now live in the Pacific Islands. Now this is a quote from the book by J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race. Negro-Caucasian mixing in all ages and all lands. According to one early legend, these early settlers named their home New Hawaii in honor of a chief named Hawaiʻilua, who is said to have led the Polynesians to the islands. But the name Hawaii is also recognized as a form of Hawaiki, the legendary name of the Polynesian homeland to the west. The ancient island of Hawaii was much like an African society. It was a series of islands ruled by strong-willed chiefs or kings who believed that they had descended from God. A court genealogist, similar to the African griot, cited names, family exploits, battles, and past glories of a proud people and their royal leaders. Hawaiian life revolved around religious ceremonies. Believe it or not, folks, right here in America, there were many black African kings and queens in Hawaii. People like King Kamehameha, Queen Ka'ahamanu Manu, King Kamehameha Halihaliho, King David Kalakalua, just to name a few, and there were plenty others. Closely linked to Hawaiian religious traditions was the kapu, or the law administered by the king. It was a rigid system of rules and guides, do's and don'ts, what's and what nots, governing events from love-making and marriage to the season for catching certain fish. It separated kings from commoners, men from women, and Hawaiians from foreigners. It was probably one of the most complex legal systems of the ancient world. If ever there was a paradise on earth, the Hawaiians appeared to have it. Blessed by a gorgeous climate, the people basked in the sun, swam in clear water, and participated in competitive games and sports. They worked in order to live, but there was a fine line between work and play. Fishing, for example, was as much as a water sport as it was a source of obtaining food. These industrious people shared their harvest so that no one was without food, and everyone found shelter in the marvelous huts built mainly from the leaves of palms and hollow trees. The people worked, swam, sang and danced, isolated from most of the rest of the world, writes Maxine March in the book Hawaiian Monarchy, The Romantic Years. Yes, a monarchy right here in America, a black monarchy. But unfortunately, that was soon to be changed. The garden would be discovered, gone would be the sunny, static days of peace and order. During those times, Hawaii was not ruled by a single king, but it was a chain of islands which included Kauai, Maui, Oahu, Molokai, Lanai, Niihau, and Kaho'olawe. Each island was ruled by a different monarch, all black. The last native ruler of Hawaii was the celebrated Queen Liliuokalani. Following the Queen's ascension to the throne in January of 1891, a Chicago newspaperwoman, Mary H. Kraut, described Queen Liliuokalani as strong and resolute. The features were strong, the complexion quite dark, the hair streaked with gray, and she had the large dark eyes of her race. The Queen was a brilliant writer, poet, and composer who worked tirelessly for the welfare of her people, while she sought to strengthen the monarchy and to literally return Hawaii to the Hawaiians. The Queen was years too late. American businesses and missionaries had strongholds in every corner of the Hawaiian culture. The Queen stood steadfastly against the U.S. forces, but finally, in January of 1893, she yielded under protest and was recorded in the Pacific Commercial Advisor on January 18th as saying, "I, Liliuokalani, by the grace of God and under the Constitution of the Hawaiian Kingdom, Queen, do hereby solemnly protest against any and all acts done against myself and the constitutional government of the Hawaiian Kingdom by certain persons claiming to have established a provisional government of and for the kingdom." Now, to avoid any collision of armed forces and perhaps the loss of life, I do under this protest and impelled by said force yield my authority unto such time as the government of the United States shall, upon the facts being presented to it, undo the actions of its representative and reinstate me in the authority which I claim as the constitutional sovereign of the Hawaiian Islands. So in 1893, she relinquished her throne to save her people and to preserve the islands. The United States never chose to undo the actions of its representative. In fact, in 1900, Hawaii had become a territory of the United States, and in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state. In 1993, President Bill Clinton signed Public Law 103-150, which is a legislation apologizing for the U.S.'s role in the 1893 overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The apology, meant as a means of reconciliation with Native Hawaiians, acknowledges the historic significance of the event, but the apology did not provide federal recognition to Native Hawaiians as other federal laws provided to American Indian tribes. So basically it was lip service, but an acknowledgement nonetheless. From King Kamehameha to Queen Liliuokalani, each Hawaiian ruler was very dark-skinned with Negro features. It is one of the incredible stories of history that few Americans are aware that the original Hawaiians were black people and that their royal family was one of the greatest of the 19th century. Right here in the United States. the Black Excellence and Abundance channel, where Black history is every day. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And never forget, thou art rich.
All right, everybody, we're back. Let's go on down here and deal with a little bit something else before I come back with another of us around the world. Okay? Let's deal with the 10 most prosperous cities that we had in the Americas. Let's deal with that and take a look at this. The reason why I want to look at this because at the outset of this broadcast, we laid it out why you are hated and despised and all this right here and what people are trying to do it. There was a book that came out, Dr. Walter Williams and I did a broadcast a while back, and he mentioned the author of the book, what it was said in the book, and the guy said that white people don't like black people because white people can't be black people. Now keep in mind, everything on the planet ain't about black and white. It ain't. But this seems to be the underlying factor because it doesn't matter where you go on the planet. As soon as they see you, they form an opinion about you. And a lot of times, you have hurtful and all kind of disdain and problems until they discover that you are this, that, and the other. But for some unknown reason, and we getting down to the bottom of this stuff, the so-called Negro, the one that's labeled as the Negro, colored and black, he is the one that is attacked the most for some unknown reason. What is it? Hold on a minute. Before I go down in this, let me tell you something. The Black Vegan Fest that will happen October the 26th right here in Jacksonville, Florida, it will begin at 11 a.m. in the morning and last until 6 p.m. in the evening. Brothers and sisters from all over the United States will be down here. No alcohol, no guns, no violence, no thugs. We won't do none of that there. When we get together, it's real serious. We got time for no drama. You can't come up in there with no mess. Okay? Please, whatever you do, don't make that mistake.
And Oklahoma is a unique space in terms of the number of African American towns that were established. Some suggest upwards of 50 African American towns between 1924 and 1928. Reverend S.S. Jones was going around documenting this sort of self-determined, vibrant African American communities. You see the African American educators, doctors, lawyers, landowners, oil barons, and I think that's what's so remarkable about this footage. To think that individuals, how many years out of slavery, are now owning oil wells that are producing 2,000 barrels a day. Is that not the ultimate American dream? Is that not the ultimate American story? And I think that that was one of the things that Oklahoma and what S.S. Jones is really kind of showing is that African American history and culture is not a monolith. And in a way, it became kind of like a marketing tool to encourage individuals to migrate, to move there, that this is a place where you can live, you can thrive, and peacefully reside. There were still palpable racial tensions. There are lynchings, there's Jim Crow, segregation, there's all of these things, and you still have an African American community, or many communities, that really speak to the fortitude and resilience of black people in this country.
And it was destroyed, all of it. Throughout history, black communities in the United States have faced numerous instances of violence, displacement, and utter malicious destruction at the hands of white mobs and authorities. These events have had a profound impact on the development of black communities and continue to shape the racial landscape of the country. It is disheartening, the kind of history we are broaching today. We hope with all sincerity that the whole historic atrocities can be humanely revisited and conscientiously repaid.
My name is Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, and I am the daughter of Reverend Joey and the late Leanna Crutcher, and I am the great-granddaughter of Rebecca Brown Crutcher, a survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And as I sit here today in front of this body, in the very seat of our democracy, I know in my bones that she is here with me in this fight for justice. Reparations is simply making amends for a wrong, and that is what we are asking for today.
That is Tiffany Crutcher, testifying at a congressional hearing on the Tulsa, Oklahoma, destruction and mass killings. Dr. Crutcher has had her own share of the sad story too, and as a victim, she isn't done talking yet. Let's listen.
The vestiges of the massacre are still found in Tulsa's criminal legal system, which has torn my family apart. In 2016, Tulsa police officer Betty Shelby shot and killed my twin brother. Terrence Crutcher is his name. Terrence Crutcher is his name. Police looking for weapons instead found gospel CDs in his car. My 40-year-old brother didn't get a fair chance to live. His children didn't get a fair chance to see another day with their father. What happened in Tulsa was perpetrated by our city's own government. Tulsa's government failed its people. Tulsa's government failed these survivors. Tulsa's government failed Rebecca Brown Crutcher. And now we are here asking our nation's government to see that justice is done in the form of reparations. Black people aren't looking for a handout. We are looking for good legislation that recognizes our humanity. We are looking for justice because for centuries injustice has cost our families an unspeakable price. We shouldn't have to live like this, and we shouldn't have to die like this.
Dr. Tiffany T. Crutcher is a native of Tulsa, Oklahoma, who was thrust into the national spotlight following the death of her twin brother, Terrence Crutcher, who was shot by a police officer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, while holding his hands in the air. The murder of her brother compelled Tiffany to speak out against police brutality, particularly the killing of unarmed black men. Crutcher is the founder of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation and the Demanding a Just Tulsa Coalition. The foundation's primary focus is criminal justice and policing reform, providing scholarships to African American students, community and AMP, youth development, and policy advocacy. Welcome to yet another poignant video segment. Today, we are taking a look at some black cities, amongst many more others, that was destroyed by whites. Before we continue, we deem it important to notify you amazing viewers that your support counts a great deal. Ensure to press the like button, share with families and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative, and kindly subscribe to keep the channel growing, if you are yet to. Now let's get to it. Black cities that were destroyed by whites. 1. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. In the memorable month of June, the year 1921, a white mob laid waste to Greenwood, a neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known as Black Wall Street.
White Tulsans not only invaded Black Tulsa, they not only looted homes and businesses, they burned it to the ground. The entire black community, aside from a few outlying areas, was absolutely put to the torch.
The term race riot does not adequately describe the events of May 31st to June 1st, 1921 in Greenwood, a black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In fact, the term itself implies that both blacks and whites might be equally to blame for the lawlessness and violence. The historical record documents a sustained and murderous assault on black lives and property. Whites killed more than 300 black people and destroyed more than 100 businesses. While these mobs had descended on this prosperous Greenwood neighborhood, their sole intention was motivated by nothing but envy. The massacre was fueled by white resentment towards the economic success of black Americans in Greenwood.
The Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma is the center of African American life for the more than 11,000 black residents of the city. Within this community lie 108 black-owned businesses, 2 theaters, 2 black schools, and 15 doctor's offices.
Booker T. Washington, who came through here en route to Muskogee, when he saw the glitter and glamour and the bustling businesses, he declared Greenwood as a Negro Wall Street of America.
We had everything out on Greenwood and in the Negro area that you needed. There were we had drugstores, grocery stores, cleaners, hotels. All of that, of course, was destroyed.
They burned homes, shops, and local institutions ranging from schools to movie theaters. Entire city blocks evaporated, as well as the contemporary equivalent of tens of millions of dollars in black property and wealth. 9,000 out of a total of 11,000 Greenwood residents were left homeless. White deputies and members of the National Guard arrested and detained 6,000 black Tulsans, who were released only upon being vouched for by a white employer or other white citizen. After living in a black community so affluent that it had been dubbed Black Wall Street, thousands spent the following winter living in tents in an internment camp. 2. Philadelphia, 1985. On May 13, 1985, police fired tear gas, water cannons, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition into 6221 Osage Avenue in West Philadelphia. And then, from a helicopter, officers dropped onto a building a satchel bomb, the kind used in World War II and Vietnam. Inside the home were 7 adults and 6 children, members of the eco-minded black liberation group MOVE. Only 2 people survived. One of the 5 children who burned was a 12-year-old little Phil Africa. 7 years earlier, his 3-week-old brother was killed after being knocked out of his mother's arms and crushed during an altercation with police. After the bombing, a fire broke out that claimed 61 surrounding buildings and left 250 people homeless in the middle-class black neighborhood. The houses built to replace them were tissue paper shoddy, and the contractors tasked with replacing them served jail time for misusing the rebuilding fund. By the mid-2010s, more than half of the rebuilt homes sat boarded up, purchased by the city for $150,000 each. 3. Anniston, Alabama. From the 1920s to the 1970s, chemical companies made polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, in Anniston, Alabama. The compounds were used as lubricants and insulators in electrical machinery. They also cause cancer and damage brain structures in humans, and were banned in the U.S. in 1979. But by then, more than 800 tons of PCBs had been released into a local canal, 32,000 tons more into the city's open landfill. Within the majority black city, black neighborhoods were hardest hit by the pollutants. Today, creeks still run red, and there are dead zones where vegetation cannot grow. Even young people contend with cancer and other illnesses. The brother of one local activist died of lung and brain cancer at just 16. In 2003, residents won a lawsuit against Monsanto worth hundreds of millions, but each of the more than 18,000 complainants only received a few thousand. Adults, saddled with homes they could not sell, were awarded $9,000 each, while children contending with the possibility of a lifetime of intellectual disabilities and health struggles were given just $2,000. Some of the funds created a clinic to treat the still suffering Anniston residents. It ran out of money and folded in 2017. The next on our list is 4. East St. Louis, Illinois, 1917. Drawn by employment opportunities in wartime industries, between 10,000 and 12,000 African American people left the South for East St. Louis, Illinois, in 1916 and 1917 as part of the Great Migration. Many white citizens of East St. Louis, which had previously been largely white, were disturbed by this movement and by the increase in employment of black people in the city's industrial plants. On July 1, 1917, a rumor spread claiming that a white man had been killed by a black man, and tensions boiled over. The next day, the city of East St. Louis exploded in the worst racial rioting the country had ever seen. Most of the violence, drive-by shootings, beatings, and arson, targeted the African American community. The riots raged for nearly a week, leaving 9 whites and hundreds of African Americans dead, and property damage estimated at close to $400,000. More than 6,000 black citizens, fearing for their lives, fled the city. The carnage was all the more shocking because it occurred only shortly after America's entry into World War I. According to historian Winston James, you have black troops going off to fight to make the world safe for democracy in April, and in July, you have black people being murdered in the most wanton and barbaric manner in East St. Louis, children being thrown back into flaming houses, people being boarded up in their houses before they're torched so that they couldn't escape. So even by American standards, East St. Louis was a horror. At the end of a July 8th meeting in Harlem to discuss the violence, Marcus Garvey, recently returned from a year-long speaking tour of the country, asked to say a few words. The crowd stood breathless as Garvey thundered condemnation. "Millions of our people in slavery gave their lives that America might live," he said. "From the labors of these people, the country grew in power, until her wealth today is computed above that of any two nations. With all the service that the Negro gave, he is still a despised creature in the eyes of white people. For if he were not to them despised, the whites of this country would never allow such outrages as the East St. Louis massacre. This is a massacre that will go down in history as one of the bloodiest outrages against mankind for which any class of people could be held guilty." After the riot, varying estimates of the death toll circulated. The police chief estimated that 100 African Americans had been killed. The renowned journalist Ida B. Wells reported in the Chicago Defender that 150 African American people were killed during the July bloodshed. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, estimated deaths at 100 to 200. Some 6,000 African Americans were left homeless after their neighborhoods were burned. The ferocious brutality of the attacks and the failure of authorities to protect civilian lives contributed to the radicalization of many blacks in St. Louis and the nation. Now, on to the next. 5. Seneca Village, New York, 1857. Another very promising city that was destroyed, which you probably haven't heard of, is the Seneca Village in New York. Prior to the establishment of Central Park, a small, thriving community of black Americans and Irish immigrants located alongside what is now West 82nd and West 89th Street. Known as Seneca Village, the settlement prospered for 32 years before it was destroyed by the city to create Central Park in 1857. By the year 1855, New York's Seneca Village was a largely flourishing black settlement with growing community members. The Seneca Village community was created in 1825 when Andrew Williams, a 25-year-old black man, used $120 to buy the first 3 lots. Epiphany Davis, a store clerk, bought 12, and the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church bought 6. The remaining lots were sold to other black people and a few Irish immigrants, allowing a total of 10 homes to be built. Seneca Village was a flourishing community that served as an escape from the racist, harsh treatment that black people endured in Manhattan. The community was home to gardens, farm animals, and allowed fishing in the Hudson River. By the 1850s, the community had 50 homes, with about 225 residents, a school for African American youth, churches, and graveyards. The inhabitants of Seneca Village carried a special privilege compared to other black communities in New York. Because half of them owned their homes, they were allowed to vote. Of the 100 black voters eligible to vote in 1845, 10 lived in Seneca Village. However, in an effort to counteract pollution and unhealthy conditions associated with urban living, city officials decided to construct a large municipal park in central Manhattan in the early 1850s. To acquire the land for the park, the city used eminent domain, a legal principle under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that states that the government can take private land for public use if given proper compensation to the landowner. As a result, approximately 1,600 people were displaced and made to leave by the end of 1857, including those who lived in Seneca Village. After the displacement, historians believe the Seneca Village inhabitants went to other black communities in the area. While those who owned property were compensated, some historians believe their compensation wasn't equal to the actual property value. When construction of the park began in 1858, the city left no trace of Seneca Village. Homes and buildings were destroyed, and existing graves were dug up and moved to a cemetery in Queens. until authors Roy Rosenzweig and Elizabeth Blackmar published their book, The Park and the People, A History of Central Park. In 1992, little was known about Seneca Village. The New York Historical Society soon created an exhibition on the village's history. As a result, Seneca Village's history was incorporated into a curriculum that was to be taught in schools around the city. Although the community existed for only 3 decades, Seneca Village was a cradle for the rights and upward social and economic mobility of emancipated Black Americans and new immigrants. 6. Rosewood, Florida, 1923. Rosewood was a successful black town in the Florida Pine Woods until it was burned to the ground by a white mob seeking revenge for the supposed assault of a white woman. On January 5, 1923, a mob of over 200 white men attacked the black community in Rosewood, Florida, killing over 30 black women, men, and children, burning the town to the ground, and forcing all survivors to permanently flee Rosewood. Prior to that day, on the 1st of January 1923 in Sumner, Florida, a young married white woman named Fannie Taylor claimed she had been assaulted by Jesse Hunter, a black man who had escaped a prison chain gang. Though there was no evidence against Mr. Hunter, local white men launched a manhunt in Rosewood, a nearby town of about 200 black people. On January 2nd, a mob of white men kidnapped, tortured, and lynched Sam Carter, a black craftsman from Rosewood, on suspicion that he had helped Jesse Hunter escape. White men continued to terrorize Rosewood, searching for Mr. Hunter, and black residents armed themselves in defense. Late on the night of January 4th, a white posse fired into the home of black Rosewood resident Sylvester Carrier, whom they suspected of harboring Mr. Hunter, and killed an elderly woman. A gunfight between Carrier and the mob lasted into the early morning, killing people on both sides. Outraged that black residents had fought back, the posse left the scene to regroup and returned with more men. On January 5th, a mob of between 200 to 300 white men attacked Rosewood, killing an estimated 30 to 40 black men, women, and children on site and burning the town to the ground. Black residents hid in the woods and fled by train to Gainesville, Florida, never to return. It was later discovered that Fannie Taylor had made false accusations against Jesse Hunter to conceal her extramarital affair with a white man. 7. Elaine, Arkansas, 1919. The film, Bound by Blood, exhumes an almost 100-year-old tragedy deep in the Arkansas Delta, in which hundreds of black sharecroppers were killed by white posses and federal troops near the town of Elaine. With reverberations still lingering today in the lives of descendants and locals, the film explores how human consequences of history continue to shape economic opportunities, identity, and meaning for generations. According to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, the Elaine mass killing was by far the deadliest racial confrontation in Arkansas history, and possibly the bloodiest racial conflict in the history of the United States. While its deepest roots lay in the state's commitment to white supremacy, the events in and around Elaine, Phillips County, stemmed from tense race relations and growing concerns about labor unions. A shooting incident that occurred at a meeting of the Progressive Farmers and Household Union escalated into mob violence on the part of the white people in Elaine and surrounding areas. Although the exact number is unknown, estimates of the number of African Americans killed by whites ranged into the hundreds. The conflict began on the night of September 30th, 1919, when approximately 100 African Americans, mostly sharecroppers, on the plantations of white landowners, attended a meeting of the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America at a church in Hoop Spur, Phillips County, 3 miles north of Elaine. The purpose of this meeting? Black farmers had begun to organize in 1919 to try to negotiate better conditions, including fair accounting and timely payment of monies due them by white landowners. Robert L. Hill, a black farmer from Winchester, Arkansas, had founded the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America, PFHUA. He worked with farmers throughout Phillips County. Its purpose was to obtain better payments for their cotton crops from the white plantation owners who dominated the area during the Jim Crow era. Black sharecroppers were often exploited in their efforts to collect payment for their cotton crops. White landowners often underpaid sharecroppers for their crops and paid when they saw fit. Between the prices of goods, purchased from the plantation store, and the crop underpayments, many were kept in debt to their landlords. At the time of settlement, landowners generally never gave an itemized statement to the black sharecroppers of accounts owed, nor details of the money received for cotton and seed. The farmers were disadvantaged, as many were illiterate. It was an unwritten law of the cotton country that the sharecroppers could not quit and leave a plantation until their debts were paid. Black labor unions, such as the Progressive Farmers, represented a threat not only to the tenet of white supremacy, but also to the basic concepts of American capitalism. Knowing that black union organizing often attracted opposition, the union advocates had brought with them armed guards who protected the meeting. When a group of white people from the Missouri Pacific Railroad attempted to intrude and spy on the meeting, the guards held them back and a shootout erupted. The result was the abrupt death of railroad policeman W.D. Adkins, employed by the Missouri Pacific Railroad, and the other white man wounded. The parish sheriff called for a posse to capture suspects in the killing. The county sheriff organized the posse, and whites gathered to put down what was rumored as a black insurrection. Additional armed white men entered the county from outside to support the hunt, and a mob of 500 to 1,000 armed men formed. They attacked black people on sight across the county. The mobs descended on the nearby black town of Elaine, Arkansas, destroying homes and businesses and attacking any black people in their path over the coming days. Terrified black residents, including women, children, and the elderly, fled their homes and hid for their lives in nearby woods and fields. After the destruction, state officials concocted an elaborate cover-up, claiming that blacks were planning an insurrection. National newspapers repeated the falsehood that blacks in Arkansas were staging an insurrection, and the Arkansas Gazette, the leading newspaper in Arkansas, wrote that Elaine was a zone of Negro insurrection. Subsequent to this reporting, more than 100 African Americans were arrested and charged with inciting violence, with 12 being sentenced to death by electrocution. After a years-long legal battle by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, the 12 men were acquitted. In all of this, no white attackers were prosecuted. 8. Colfax, Louisiana, 1873. The Colfax destruction of 1873 was a politically motivated mass killing of black Republicans in Colfax, Louisiana. White Democrats, angered by the results of the state election, had led to the mass killing that ensued. This was a direct attack on black men getting the right to vote during Reconstruction. After whites contested the result of the 1872 election, black men and a mostly black state militia holed up around the parish courthouse to protect the local government. On Easter Sunday, April 13, 1873, they were surrounded by a white mob that set the courthouse on fire and shot anyone who emerged. It is estimated that 150 African Americans were killed. 9. Detroit, 1943. On June 20, 1943, fighting broke out between white and black youth on Detroit's Belle Isle, igniting 3 days of violence, looting, and arson. Mayor Edward Jeffries and Governor Harry Kelly requested federal intervention when the police could not quell the spreading riots. By the time President Franklin Roosevelt sent more than 6,000 U.S. Army troops to restore peace, nearly 700 people had been injured and 34 people were killed, amongst which 25 are black and 9 are white, and property damage totaled approximately $2 million. The brutal nature of the injuries and deaths in those 3 days revealed a well of hatred that went much deeper than city officials were prepared to publicly acknowledge. A lack of honest action, combined with questionable investigations that placed blame squarely at the feet of black Detroiters, further incited their growing sense of injustice. 10. Springfield, Illinois, 1908. The Springfield race riot of 1908 consisted of events of mass racial violence committed against African Americans by a mob of about 5,000 white Americans and European immigrants in Springfield, Illinois, between August 14th and 16th, 1908. Springfield residents woke on August 14th, unprepared for what was about to happen and the change that was coming as a nation. On the evening of August 14th, 1908, after being accused of unrelated sexual assault and murder crimes, 2 black men were sitting in jail. Tension was rising as a large mob of about 5,000 white people were gathering outside, trying to take matters into their own hands. They were demanding the release of both George Richardson and Joe James. George, who was accused of raping a white woman, and Joe, who was accused of murdering a white man. As the police were sensing danger, the county sheriff, with help from Harry Loper, a white business owner, secretly removed the two prisoners through the back door and put them on a train that transported them to another jail in Bloomington, IL. Once the mob learned of this move, they erupted in mass racial violence. Spreading out, the mob headed towards the black neighborhoods, looting and damaging black-owned business, destroying their homes, and eventually lynching two important members of the black community, Scott Burton and William Dunnigan. Springfield endured racial violence for days, until Illinois Governor Charles Deneen called the Illinois National Guard to bring the riots under control. The nation was shocked by the racial violence that occurred, and the irony of it happening in the hometown of Abraham Lincoln. If it could happen in Springfield, it could happen anywhere, activists believed. As a result, many died, including both black and white residents. Dozens of black-owned homes and businesses were burned to the ground, causing property damage of over $150,000, a large cost in 1908. These events caused thousands of the black residents to pack up their families and move out of Springfield, some to never return. Of the two accused black men, who were the main focus of the racial violence, Joe James was eventually tried, convicted, and hanged for the murder of clergy Ballard. George Richardson was set free after his accuser, Mabel Hallam, recanted her story. These are anecdotes of literal physical destruction of black communities. But while the carnage can be as unmistakable as bombs falling from the sky, it more often takes the form of slower burning ravages wrought by economic starvation, over-policing, educational deprivation, and mass incarceration. American history is littered with the destruction of black communities. This brings us to the end of this video segment. Did you happen to learn a thing or two from the content? Freely share your thoughts with us in the comment section, and we will be happy.
All right, we're back, everybody. Okay, now let us go back. Now that we find out some of the extent that the hate, envy, and jealousy will go, let us go down and look at, in my personal opinion, one of the main hubs, which is just a fraction, a tidbit fraction in our ancient story that they even told us about, that they all they know about, that's worldwide. And when I say they, I'm not just talking about white folks. I'm talking about everybody but you. It could be people in Arabia, it could be all over. But when you appear in your purest form, there's room enough to say, I don't like that. Well, I just don't like it. I don't like it. Here we go, y'all.
So, who are the Egyptians and what do they look like? The Ethiopians mentioned that Egypt is but a colony of Ethiopia. We also have notable as well as credible accounts of the physical appearance of ancient Egyptians from an eyewitness perspective, coming from the father of history himself, Herodotus. Herodotus was a Greek historian known for his detailed accounts and credible investigations of historical affairs, which earned him the title Father of History. He described the Egyptians as dark-skinned people with woolly hair, with the same skin complexion as Ethiopians. Not only Herodotus, but countless Greek historians mentioned that the Egyptians had similarities with the Ethiopians. Like countless Greek historians at the time, Herodotus spent over 20 years in Egypt, making him a credible source in regards to their appearance. In this video, I'll be answering the question, when exactly did Egypt become white, and simultaneously furnishing you with even more evidence and absolute proof that ancient Egyptians were of a darker hue, just like me. Let's surgically dissect this matter, starting with my strong points, which emanate from the works of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop and Ladipo Solanke, who in his book, United West Africa at the Bar of Family of Nations, mentions that far before Alexander the Great, before the Romans, before Athens was Ethiopia, the conqueror of Egypt. Egypt was such a great civilization and a great force to be reckoned with because of the Nile River. The desertification of North Africa forced settlements along the Nile, which provide fertile soil for farming, forcing the people to build a civilization along the Nile. Dr. Sheikh believed that these settlements have to be diverse, consistent of members from the West, East, and North Africa, with one aim of survival, with the majority influence coming from East Africa. An interesting point about the Egyptian civilization is that their pharaohs were not all from the same family, neither were they from the same ethnic group. Egypt was very diverse, and this diversity was reflected upon those who ruled them and their pharaohs. The elites in the Egyptian society, as well as their pharaohs, were as diverse as their entire population at the time. So there was no ruling class that consisted of just one ethnicity. We know of notable rulers from Libya and also from further south as Sudan. Let us look at the first pharaoh of Egypt, King Namon, the king who united Egypt. And you can see that he clearly has keen resemblance to one of modern-day Central and West Africa. After King Namon came King Zoser, who built the first pyramid, but unfortunately, we don't have the most accurate representation of his appearance because every representation that we do have of him, his nose is vandalized, his statue is defaced. We see that these vandalisms is very consistent amongst notable pharaohs in Egyptian societies, known for notable things like King Ramesses III, who's known for his construction of the temple at Karnak. I cannot say with a full heart that this vandalism was with racial intentions because I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that the evidence is damning, and many of these Egyptian relics have withstood the test of time of over 5,000 years, except their nose. Stop. You don't get it. In the year 1 AD when Jesus was born, this year is closer to us than it is when the pyramids were being built. So they had been around for a very, very long time, just for their nose to be weathered. The opposing theory that many scholars hold in regards to this is that since their nose sticks out more, it is more subject to agents of denudation. Therefore, their nose is weathered easily. Maybe the Egyptians used less quality materials when they were working on the noses of their statues. Others believe that various dynasties were at conflict with one another, so the Egyptians themselves vandalized the noses of their own relics so as to prevent their rivaling pharaohs from breathing in the afterlife. My posing question is, why not destroy the entire statue or remove the head completely? Why only tamper with its nose? And why has every other part of these statues withstood the test of time, except their nose? So, what happened in ancient Egypt to constitute the diversity that we see today? Even to this day, modern Egypt still has close resemblance to Ethiopia. And to understand its diversity more, there's something important that I must state first. Race is a modern day construct and was given no regards to in the past, so we must tread cautiously when we're associating a modern idea to a people who lived 3,000 years before Jesus Christ. These people gave no regards at all to race. In the region of modern-day Egypt, there have always been people of lighter skin complexions and straighter hair since 60,000 years ago. And there's an argument that these physical features originated in Africa, because within Africa, you'll find every genetic diversity that is out there. Let's get even more complicated. Skin color doesn't necessarily give you a precise representation of someone's ancestry. For example, you can find people who are fair in complexion but have closer ancestral ties to someone that we may refer to as black, and to the contrary of that, you may find someone of a darker hue but have closer ancestral ties to someone that we may refer to as white. A good example of this is Uncle Ruckus. No relations. Another factor that may have contributed to the complexion that we see today in modern day Egypt is ancient Egyptian culture. We must understand the culture at the time. Egypt was a culture that focused on everything except military. Everyone who wanted a piece of Egypt got a piece of Egypt. From the Hyksos, the Assyrians, the Persians, Arabs, Libyans, the Nubians. This was the most unpredictable military in human history. I bet I could have gotten a piece of Egypt if I wanted to. You see, Egypt never really had a military, which is why it took them 150 years to free themselves from the Hyksos. This was their first military campaign conducted, and was only done so to liberate themselves from the Hyksos. And if I may, I would like to spiral into a brief timeline of Egypt. 800 years before Jesus Christ came the invasion of my favorite people ever, the Kushites from Sudan, who occupied Egypt for nearly a century. Pause. If you guys don't know home team history, stop watching this video. In fact, I do not say this jokingly, and I mean this with all sincerity. Unsubscribe from my YouTube channel and subscribe to Home Team History, and watch this video titled History of Nubia's Greatest Kings. You see, Kush was an older kingdom compared to Egypt and was located south of Egypt. Kush was more like an older brother to Egypt. They both had similar cultures and religion. They traded frequently amongst one another, and at the time, Egypt was under the rule of external forces, and the Kushite king Kashta took it upon himself to liberate Egypt. This was a holy war to restore and rebuild their religious traditions and temples, and to do away with the Libyans who at the time occupied Egypt, corrupting their religious identities. And after the Kushites came Alexander the Great, the Romans, and the Arab conquest. Everyone basically ran through Egypt. You can imagine the mix and the blending of so many cultures in one place, and this begs the question, is Egypt African? Well, hell yeah. The foundations of Egyptian society is a mix of all the continents of Africa, with a majority influence from Ethiopia. Hold on. Majority of the accounts that we have of ancient Egyptian societies are from the Greeks, because through Greek and the Rosetta Stone we're able to interpret hieroglyphics. The geographical location that the Greeks referred to as Ethiopia was not just modern-day Ethiopia as we know. This location referred to as Ethiopia consisted of Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia itself, Eritrea, and Somalia, kinda. Can you now see that this is all parallel to Ethiopia's claim that Egypt is but a colony of Ethiopia? Hold on. Please permit me once more to spiral into a temporary tangent. As an Afrocentrist, I innately gravitate away from talking about ancient Egypt because it makes it seem as though I'm grasping for straws, desperate to claim someone else's culture. This innate feeling is nurtured by the reality that there is a population of Egypt with little resemblance to the skin complexion shared by majority of the African continent. This has created within me, and I presume within many others as well, a conflict of interest that this civilization of Egypt has always been annexed to Europe or the Middle East. It is disingenuous and an injustice to exclude Egypt from Africa or African history. There's nothing foreign about Egypt. Egypt holds its foundations on the unification of several African societies along the Nile, foundations that began purely African during the construction of the pyramids. There's very little more African than that. Excluding Egypt from Africa is an injustice. We know that ancient Egypt is a culture to marvel, a culture far beyond its time, and it is no surprise that Afrocentrists like I disrelish the idea of separating Egypt from the rest of Africa. And it should be of no surprise that on the other hand is a party with the idea that ancient Egypt was never part of Africa to begin with, a stark contrast to the notion of Africa being the oldest and one of the most significant contributors to world culture. And this, I believe, is the reason for this debate. The rhetoric of the opposing party claims that ancient Egyptian culture was achieved by people who were not Africans. Come on. You see, this argument still persists today because many 21st century scholars could not bring themselves to the actualization that Africans were capable of creating a civilization that Europe made a template out of. Hence the render of ancient Egyptians as Caucasians in TV shows and history books. Don't forget to dislike this video.
All right, everybody, we're back now. We're going to take a little quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get down into some more of this stuff here. So y'all hold on a minute. Keep in mind that the Black Vegan Fest that will happen down here in Jacksonville, Florida on October the 26th, which is this Saturday. Will begin at 11 a.m. and will run until 6 p.m. So if your flight is running late and stuff, don't panic. You'll be down here in enough time to enjoy yourself. All of us going to be down here and we'll be having a good time. Okay? Hold on a minute. We'll be going right back. Hold on.
Most black people know about the housing segregation in which black people were forced to live separately and away from the white population. However, this is not the entire truth. We mean, if there were black towns, why aren't they there today? Well, don't think that there was no housing segregation. Rather, those black towns were intentionally established so they could be wiped out and flooded easily. Those black towns had flourished by the late 1880s, but the racists cannot see that. Until 1888, there were over 200 black towns where, after a few decades, there was no trace of black communities. It turned out that those towns were wiped out and flooded systematically. But how something dark and troubling like that could happen? Welcome to a new episode of Black Culture Diary, a channel where we talk about less known and hidden black history, culture, arts, and lost civilization. We scrutinize history here to bring the black culture back on the surface again. We encourage you to join our community in supporting and building a strong black history education medium. In this episode, we will expose how black towns in the United States were flooded and wiped out for the white population. Let's get started. Seneca Village in New York City comes first. Back in 1825, Seneca Village was a powerful example of a vibrant African-American community that defied legal segregation and discrimination that plagued the country. It was established on the outskirts of the city, stretching from 82nd Street to 89th Street on Manhattan's Upper West Side. Around 300 proud black residents called this place home, working tirelessly to build a prosperous and close-knit neighborhood. What's truly extraordinary is that many in Seneca Village owned property, which was a monumental achievement considering the circumstances. At that time, owning property by black people was next to impossible due to the legal hurdles. But still, the property ownership rate was 5 times higher than the city's average. Within that black community, there were 3 churches where black people could gather in faith, a school where they could educate their children, and various small businesses like a grocery store, shoemaker, and blacksmith. But don't get it twisted. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Its black community faced countless challenges, including discriminatory laws that aimed to restrict their freedoms and opportunities. As New York City grew and developed, the wealthy and powerful had grand plans to reshape the area. They wanted to create a massive park that we now know as Central Park. In 1855, the New York State Legislature passed a law that allowed them to use eminent domain to seize black people's land for the park's creation. They accused the black community, the residents of Seneca Village, of being a public nuisance, and they forcibly evicted the black community from their homes to make way for the park's construction. By 1857, the community had been torn apart, and they were left with no choice but to relocate, mostly ending up in Manhattan's Lower East Side. The erasure of Seneca Village is a heartbreaking example of how systemic racism and forced displacement devastated black communities throughout American history. Despite their incredible efforts to build a thriving and prosperous community against all odds, they were pushed to the margins by a government that abandoned the black community and wealthy elites who couldn't care less about their well-being. The loss of Seneca Village had a deep impact on the African American residents who were uprooted from their homes, dreams, and businesses. Today, the only reminder of Seneca Village is a plaque dedicated in 2001 to honor the lost village. That plaque serves as a powerful reminder of the vibrant black communities that have been lost due to discrimination and systemic racism in the United States. It stands as a testament to their strength, resilience, and determination, urging society to recognize and rectify the injustices they faced. To another devastating incident that shook the black community, the town of Cowaliga in Alabama. It was situated beneath the peaceful waters of Lake Martin and once thrived as an African-American community founded in the late 19th century. The story began when John Benson, a formerly enslaved individual, purchased thousands of acres of land in Alabama and sold it to other African-American families, establishing their community. Cowaliga prospered with its very own black-owned railroad and was home to the Cowaliga Academic and Industrial Institute. This institute provided education and vocational training to African-American students, equipping them with the skills needed to navigate a world that often treated the black community with hostility. Unfortunately, Cowaliga's success was short-lived. The rise of the Ku Klux Klan and the limited economic opportunities available to African Americans in the area led to the decline of the community in the 1920s. By the 1950s, the once thriving town had vanished entirely. In the 1960s, the Alabama Power Company purchased all the land with plans to build a hydroelectric dam, resulting in the creation of Lake Martin. Later, to show how prosperous Cowaliga was, a museum was built that showcases the rich history of Cowaliga, including exhibits on John Benson and the Cowaliga Academic and Industrial Institute. Additionally, the society organizes tours of the area and hosts events to celebrate Cowaliga's heritage. Then comes the heart-wrenching story of Oscarville. Today, Lake Lanier in Georgia is a well-known spot that people love to visit for fishing, boating, and relaxing getaways. It's a big lake, covering over 38,000 acres with 692 miles of shoreline, and it provides water to the city of Atlanta. But beneath its peaceful surface lies a tragic history that not many people are aware of. Lake Lanier was built on the remains of Oscarville, a once thriving African-American community that was destroyed back in 1912. Oscarville was a small black community located in the northeastern part of Forsyth County, Georgia. It was established in the late 1800s and was home to over 100 black families who worked as farmers, carpenters, and in other trades. Despite facing the oppressive Jim Crow laws of that era, the residents of Oscarville managed to create a self-sufficient and tight-knit community. The destruction of Oscarville started with allegations of assaults against white women in September. 2 black men, along with 4 others believed to be involved, were arrested, and tensions escalated. Later, the body of a white resident was found, which led to the lynching and public execution of the suspects. Following these trials and executions, a group known as the Night Riders, made up of white men, launched a campaign of terror against the black residents of Oscarville. They burned down homes, churches, and schools, forcing black families to flee their homes. As a result, more than 1,000 residents were displaced due to the violence. The land where Oscarville once stood was later purchased by the Army Corps of Engineers, who built Lake Lanier over the remnants of the destroyed community. Perhaps it was done to cover the atrocities that were once unleashed. The lake's construction took place in the 1950s and was completed in the 1960s. Nowadays, it's a popular place for recreation and a significant source of hydroelectric power for the region. However, Lake Lanier's allure carries a haunting history. Some visitors have reported witnessing strange lights, hearing ghostly voices, and feeling a sense of unease in certain areas, believing that the spirits of Oscarville's former residents still linger. Another town called Vanport in Oregon met a similar fate. During World War II, the rapid growth of shipyard industries led to the establishment of Vanport as the second largest city in Oregon. This attracted African Americans from the southern states who were seeking better job opportunities. However, due to systemic racism, the Albina neighborhood became the only legal place for black people to reside. To address the housing crisis caused by the influx of workers, Vanport was constructed as a temporary solution on a floodplain. Nobody knows whether this was done deliberately. At its peak, the city housed 40,000 residents, with 40% being African American. In 1948, disaster struck when the Columbia River flooded, completely wiping out the entire neighborhood in just one day. Over 18,500 families, including a significant number of Black Americans, were displaced as a result. The aftermath of the flood revealed the deep-rooted systemic racism in Oregon. White supremacists attempted to keep Black Americans out of the state, and laws were enacted in the state legislature to maintain its predominantly white character. These laws imposed restrictions on Black individuals, preventing them from owning property or settling in the state. Even after the laws were repealed in 1956, the legacy of systemic racism persisted. Then comes Susanna Village in Tallapoosa County, Alabama. Susanna Village once thrived as a prosperous and close-knit small town. This charming farming community boasted a range of businesses that served as pillars of the community, including a bank, sawmill, grist mill, post office, and even a gold mine. Situated on Blue Creek between Curry's Point and Stillwaters, Susanna represented a beacon of hope for pioneers seeking a better life in the American South. However, the early 20th century brought an unfathomable tragedy to Susanna. The construction of Lake Martin mercilessly submerged the town underwater, erasing its vibrant streets and bustling businesses forever. All that remains are scattered fragments and memories of what once was. It is heart-wrenching to think that over 900 bodies from the area's cemeteries had to be relocated due to the flooding, underscoring the immense loss suffered by the people of Susanna. Despite this heartbreak, Susanna's legacy lives on in the hearts and minds of Alabamians and history enthusiasts. These Black towns and villages, which were allowed to be flooded and wiped out today, stay as a reminder of the atrocities Black people faced in the past. Their homes were destroyed, their businesses ruined, and their dreams demolished. Many had to leave everything, even the graves of their loved ones, in the sinking and wiping towns. Did you ever learn about the merciless flooding of Black towns in history books? Tell us, why isn't this part of Black history taught? Let us know your opinion on the fact that Black people should know their history, no matter how dark and troubling it is. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon.
All right, everybody, we're back. We're coming down to the close of the broadcast. I'm trying to get the most stuff in. And in my opinion, here we go. Don't let nobody change your mind about what you know for a fact and you can prove, because a lot of times people will try to bring in belief to stop you from telling the hard, bare-naked truth about the facts. Okay? Hold on.
Of course, they would like to redirect us to talk about problems in our own societies. Our societies are the only ones that are ever supposed to be criticized. You know, you're not supposed to talk about them. You're not supposed to talk about the West. You're not supposed to focus on Western wrongdoing. Acceptable discussion only includes praising them and denigrating and berating us. That's what's allowed. So of course they want to divert us from talking about colonization and occupation and genocide to instead talking about, you know, goat life or what have you. You know, the kefala system, migrant workers in the GCC or whatever. Always attack your own people, attack your own countries, attack your own governments. That's always welcome. And if we do talk about Western crimes, according to their logic, that in order to be fair, we should also talk about wrongdoing in the Muslim world. Otherwise, we're being biased. Like, it makes sense to them. If we're going to talk about how Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer who used to chop up his victims and eat them, then for the sake of fairness, we should also talk about the fact that maybe some of his victims used to eat junk food. This makes sense to them. I mean, you do realize that if we do talk about problems in the Muslim world as part of a so-called balanced conversation when we talk about Western crimes, this is only going to magnify how unbalanced the comparison actually is, how disproportionately atrocious the West is as compared to anything that you could criticize about the West's victims. I mean, this is the epitome of false equivalence. It's like saying that there are casualties on both sides of the Gaza conflict or any such dishonest obfuscation. And I think if it's not deliberate, malicious deflection, then it is symptomatic of the West's disingenuous approach to so-called free speech. The way they use free speech as a rationale for juxtaposing rational thought with irrational thought, intelligence with idiocy, because everyone should have a voice. And they use a very calculated formula, actually, in popular media, in like mainstream news and so on, that is literally designed to disorient you. You know, there'll be some story of a horrific tragedy immediately followed by a celebrity gossip story, which will then be followed by a story about famine, which will then be followed by a story about, you know, fluffy puppies on a water slide. Subconsciously, this undermines your intellectual ability to even discern the relative importance or gravity of pieces of information, which is why your society minimizes monstrosities and maximizes trivialities all the time. So you'll easily be distracted, you'll be easily confused, you'll be easily sidelined, easily redirected and misdirected and disconnected from reality. You've lost any sense of proportion. Your sense of judgment floats in zero gravity, where a mountain weighs the same as a grain of sand. And what you don't understand, if you're doing this out of innocent ignorance and not with malicious intention of deliberately obfuscating your society's evil, if you're doing it innocently, what you don't understand is that you are helping the most savage, violent, psychopathic power structure in the world to evade accountability. When you direct your attention to the comparatively minor, comparatively mundane, and usually anomalistic examples of wrongdoing in the Muslim world or in the Arab world or what have you, and you try to suggest that these examples deserve anything like the same attention and the same concern as the mass murder of tens of thousands of innocent men, women, and children and babies in Gaza being committed by the United States by means of Israel, well, then you're complicit, in my opinion. You're acting knowingly or unknowingly as an agent for the U.S. and the Zionists. And wallahi, you're helping them to minimize the gravity of their crimes and trivializing the barbarity of their actions. And you're participating, again, knowingly or unknowingly, in an absolutely contemptible campaign to deceive, corrupt, and degrade people's moral judgment. I mean, not only are whatever instances of wrongdoing that you might point to in the Muslim world minuscule by comparison, and generally the types of things that Westerners talk about or point out in the Muslim world, they're things that are done by individuals, you know, or non-state actors, militant groups or what have you, which have anyway been created, trained, and funded and planted by the West themselves, or else they're talking about cultural practices that don't reflect Islamic law and don't even reflect the laws of the countries where those examples might take place. The instances of wrongdoing in the Muslim community are no more representative of us than your instances of good doing are representative of you. Both are anomalies. Because you do wrong on a policy level, on an official level. You commit crimes on the state level. And your whole society, your whole culture, your whole popular entertainment, and your media all glorify your wrongdoing. Both quantitatively and qualitatively, there's no comparison. I mean, you may find an oppressive Muslim here and there, an extremist here and there, but you're oppressive on a global scale, and your society is defined by its extremism. You're extreme in your violence. You're extreme in your celebration of your violence. You're extreme in your perversion, extreme in your addiction, extreme in your predation, extreme in your greed, extreme in your racism. You're extreme in your arrogance and your Western supremacism and white supremacism. You're extreme in your hypocrisy. And like I said, you do this on the state level, on the level of society-wide behavior and beliefs. Your government, your national militaries, your official intelligence agencies, your biggest companies and corporations are all participating in this. Your wrongs are not aberrations. They're not exceptions. They are continuous, consistent, characteristic, and catastrophic. And it is so definitive of who you are as a so-called civilization that it's predictable. So no, I'm not going to help you minimize or distract or evade or deflect from your monstrous crimes by talking about our own mundane issues. Our issues anyway are none of your business. But your issues are our business because you are the biggest issue that we have. And you made it that way. You don't get to complain about it when people around the world criticize America as if it's none of their business. When you have imposed America on the whole world, you made it this way. We can't talk about our countries without talking about you. because you're interfering and intervening and intruding in our countries. We're not doing that to you. So when we talk about you, we're talking about our own situation, because you are disproportionately involved in our own situation, in everyone's situation actually. Like I said, it's completely misleading and false to equate in severity any problems within the Muslim societies to the problems that you cause in the world and in Muslim societies. We all just watched the videos of Palestinian refugees being bombed in their tents. You blow up schools, you blow up hospitals, you blow up clinics, you blow up people's homes, and then blow up the tents that they're sheltering in because you blew up their homes. You rape detainees with broomsticks and you celebrate it, and you demand the right to be able to torture and rape people. And you applaud the torturers and the rapists on morning television shows. You declare your intention to take over other people's lands, other countries, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. You, your Israeli contingent, the Jewish brigade of Western imperialism, because that's what they are, they're you and you're them. Everything that the Israelis are doing, everything that the Zionists are doing, that's you. You're the ones doing that. You're doing all of that. Attacking like 6 different countries at the same time in full-blown psychotic criminal aggression. Attacking the United Nations staff, United Nations troops, literally attacking peacekeeping troops. And no matter how flagrant a crime against humanity that you commit, no matter what blatant, unspeakable war crime that Israel commits on camera, in broad daylight, in front of the whole world, your only response is to give them more weapons and more money. Please explain to me how you're not monstrous. Netanyahu should be in jail. Gallant should be in jail. Smotrich should be in jail. Ben-Gvir should be in jail. Biden should be in jail. Harris should be in jail. Every minute that these war criminals are on the loose is the collective West and America declaring to the world that they're an outlaw society and they do not believe even slightly in the rule of law. And you're a menace to the planet. And then you're going to say, well, what about women in Iran? Right? Women in Iran being arrested if they remove the headscarf. Are you out of your mind? Did you hear what I just said? Bombing men, women, children, and babies in tents versus a different criteria for what constitutes public indecency. Are you seriously equating these things? Is that how morally confused you are? Or is it just that, yes, the most heinous crime that anyone can ever possibly commit in your eyes is just being different from you? Like thinking legally a woman should cover her head in public, not just her breasts. Like in the U.S., a woman will also get arrested for being uncovered, but it only applies to her breasts. So we're literally actually only at odds with regards to the area of coverage that's required, not the issue of coverage itself. And that difference is enough for you to think that it is of equal importance and severity as war crimes, bombing, torture, rape, and mass murder. So yeah, let's talk about the wrongs in the Muslim world, right? Wallahi, this is demented. People need permission from their employers to change jobs in the Gulf if they have not completed their current work contract. Oh, that's a catastrophic injustice, and we must speak out against it. Meanwhile, Americans in IDF uniforms are gang-raping detainees and blowing up residential city blocks in Lebanon versus the GCC makes foreign workers do paperwork. Are you serious? Oh, women get catcalled in Egypt versus a woman is assaulted every 3 seconds in America, and America is the sex trafficking center of the world. Do you see how insidious it is to try to compare these things? To act like there's some equity between them? No, morality requires discernment and prioritization. You have to be able to actually gauge degrees of severity. Otherwise, you're just a moral relativist. Practically speaking, you're a relativist. Vaporizing families in refugee camps is bad. Also, littering is bad. People who do either one of these things are bad people and deserve equal condemnation. This is a mockery of morality. While pretending that you want to address all injustices, you're only mocking justice itself if you treat all injustice equally. Like if your soup is cold when the waiter brings it to you, is that an injustice? So is that the same then as if you shoot the waiter in the face? No. Standing up for justice includes standing up for distinguishing bad from worse. All injustices are not equal. All crimes are not equal. And there is nothing that anyone is doing anywhere that even approaches the crimes and the injustice of the West, neither in scale nor in severity. Prioritizing opposition to the West's catastrophic injustices does not mean ignoring anything and everything that's less than that. It's simply a rational recognition that they are less than that. But furthermore, I would say that, and I've said this before, solidarity and unity are obligatory. We're concerned with economic sovereignty, political independence, and psychological decolonization for the Muslims and for the global South more broadly. All the peoples of the world who have suffered colonization, exploitation, subjugation, and domination by the West. And this is a confrontation. So we need to close ranks, circle the wagons, and stand shoulder to shoulder as a single solitary structure in this confrontation, and not allow ourselves to be turned against each other, not allow ourselves to denigrate each other, tear each other down, and do the work of our enemies by turning our attention away from them and turning it against ourselves. Between ourselves, we have to be compassionate, we have to be pardoning, and we have to be encouraging and supportive. Any criticism must be constructive criticism with genuinely brotherly intent, with the intention to solidify and strengthen our ranks, reinforcing, optimistic, with goodwill. Yes, hypocrites pose a problem, but the hypocrites expose themselves the moment they do the opposite of what I just talked about. The surest sign of hypocrisy is when someone is literally doing the enemy's job by trying to tear down the Muslims, trying to sow division and animosity between the believers, and try to undermine our solidarity. The moment they try to turn our attention away from the ones that we're confronting and being confronted by, the ones who are bombing us and killing us and torturing us and subjugating our nations, the moment they want to turn our attention away from them, well, you know whose side they're on. And what you need to do is ignore them. Turn away from them. Put them on mute and move on. There's no need for debates. There's no need for arguments or engagement of any kind. You shut them out to shut them down. Because look, wallahi, I honestly believe that we're experiencing something like a Badr moment for our ummah. You know how the chiefs of the enemies of Islam, the elite of the kuffar, all assembled at Badr, and Rasulullah ﷺ said, this is Quraysh. They have come in their arrogance and in their pride to protect their caravan. Well, that's America, and Israel is the caravan that they're protecting. They're pouring in their billions into this. They're staking their credibility on this. They're pinning their hopes on this. They know that their future as a global power depends on this sinking aircraft carrier known as Israel, and they're going for broke. And they're taking the whole collective West with them. They're trying to make all of their so-called allies co-sign on their atrocities, on their crimes, on their savagery, on their undermining and sabotaging and defiance of international law, of the United Nations, of every norm and standard of international relations. They're trying to get everyone to go along with that. Everything that they're doing to try to salvage their power, trying to salvage their influence, salvage their image, is doing nothing but destroy it. We're watching America and the collective West having a full-blown meltdown in the Middle East, and they're so far gone that they can't even see what they're doing. You know, Blinken came back from Riyadh last week and called Mohammed bin Salman a spoiled child. Meanwhile, your boy, Netanyahu, is saying Gaza is mine, Lebanon is mine, Syria is mine, Iraq is mine, Jordan is mine, Saudi Arabia and Egypt are mine. It's all mine. Even saying we should rape the Irish UN peacekeepers. Maybe we should even invade Ireland. No one can tell us what to do. International law isn't the boss of me, but bin Salman is the spoiled child. Everyone can see you. Everyone can hear you. You're putting your psychopathic God complex on display right in the open in front of everybody. It's like somebody told you that the toilet is a safety deposit box and you lock it by flushing. You're flushing your whole so-called civilization, all your prestige, all your power, right down the toilet, and you think that you're protecting it. This is what we're seeing. They think that Israel is their new Alamo. It's Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. See, you have to understand American thinking, their myths, and so on. They know on some level that they're going to lose, but they think that there's something heroic or something noble in taking suicidal stands for the sake of American colonial supremacy. All the countries of the global south, all of BRICS, everyone is on the side of the Palestinians, on the side of international law, on the side of humanity. All of the countries that represent the future of the global economy. This is not going to go well. This is not going to turn out well for America. There's no realistic question about that. Because you see, there's a day after. There's a week later. There's time moving forward. The dust settles. The toll is tabulated. And everything that you're doing now will be judged. You're caught up in the momentum of your own death spiral. Your Zionist colonial project is drowning and flailing in the water, and they're going to pull you down with them. Because they're not actually drowning. They're tangled up in the chain of an anchor that's pulling them into the depths of oblivion. And that anchor is their racist, supremacist, colonizer philosophy. And America and Israel think that they can swim up faster than that anchor can pull them down, but they can't. You have to detach yourselves from that philosophy if you want to stay afloat, but they can't do that either. So all the violence, all the carnage, all the horrors that we're seeing, we have to try to understand that in context, not just in the context of this moment, and not even just in the context of history, but in the context of the future. Try to look at what's going on today as if you're looking back on it. All of the violence is just like a wild splashing of a drowning man, and eventually that splashing and that flailing will stop, and we all know what it means when it stops. It means you're down for the count. You're drowning in the blood of your victims, and all of that blood that you're spilling is going to fill your lungs and you won't be able to breathe. They're in a terrible situation of their own making. So sure, I understand why they would like to try to divert attention away from the calamity that they're facing, which is the crumbling edifice of their whole so-called civilization. All of their crimes and their atrocities are on full display. They've always tried to avoid scrutiny, but there's no reason why you and I should help them with that, why you and I should try to help them avoid scrutiny. There's no equivalent to Western savagery, Western tyranny, Western oppression. There's no equivalent today, and there's no equivalent in history. And anyone who tries to suggest that there is, or who tries to redirect our attention away from them, is doing nothing but draw attention to their own dishonesty and their own hypocrisy.
All right, I want to say welcome to this special edition of I Never Knew TV. We got Maj Toure, Rizza Islam, King Randall. Appreciate everybody coming. And I have to say shout out to Mo. This is really Mo Vision, tell you the truth. He told me about this a long time ago, and he just worked out that you brothers are here.
Yeah.
So we give thanks for that. So shout out to Mo, right?
Shout out to Mo.
All right. We have too many practices that don't seem to be serving us collectively and solving our problems. One thing I've been observing is religion, right? Are the religions practiced by Black people in America helping them deal with the spiritual, mental, family, and economic challenges they're experiencing in today's society?
Who's first? I'm gonna start first because I believe mine is gonna be 100% pessimistic. I do not believe that collectively. I'm not saying that there's not. Yeah, collectively. I don't think that collectively the vast majority of and I say the vast majority. I don't know of many churches that are feeding the community like the Nation of Islam does for decades, that have farms, right? So the outlier does not mean that the general public is in alignment with it. That's almost like the exception. So if overall the practices that we're doing, are they economically, spiritually, and physically empowering our communities? Absolutely not. When you talk about, this talking point, everyone knows it is true. During Jim Crow, the Black community was advancing in the middle class section of life, even with Jim Crow rules over top of it, more so than the white middle class. So that means that now there's a difference in the spiritual practice than between then. So to me, overall, no. I think that we have been infiltrated. I think that the thought process is to keep, you want to keep your nonprofit status as this tax, as this church. You say this is your leadership. I think there's an unseen hand, and I don't think that I think they're a far cry away from when it was the pressure of we got to work with each other because ain't nobody else coming. So I don't think right currently, maybe even over the last 30, 40 years, I don't really see it collectively operating the same way. And I don't see a way back from those areas. I think they're collectively doomed.
Oh, well, I would say the improper practicing of the religions is what's killing the communities. For example, I mean, even Muslims, Christians, none of them are actually practicing the principles of these books, especially, again, mentioning churches, etc. None of these churches are serving these communities. Where I live, we have about 400 churches in our hometown, no moves of God anywhere. And a lot of these, pastors, etc., they're becoming politicians in their communities. And a lot of these churches, I mentioned before, they actually benefit financially from the communities being in turmoil. These churches apply for grants, etc. Like, oh, well, the community is in this condition. We need $1 million grant for this. So they'll get said grant and never fix it and apply for the same type of grant the next year. So it's like they're constantly benefiting from the community being in turmoil. I mean, what does it benefit, seriously for a church to have people that don't need them? So again, we have to look at those institutions like, are they actually trying to benefit the people? Then on top of that, they're who's teaching the people. So it's like they're thinking that this is how it's supposed to be. This is what our religion's supposed to be, because they're not reading their Bible for real. They're not actually going to go challenge their pastor. Their pastor's providing them a place to stay. Their pastor is, providing them a job at the church. It's like little stuff like that that keeps things in control. Even mentioning again, the improper schooling. There's no way we have so many churches and the kids can't read. It's insane. Why don't we have that happening at church? I've even said before, I don't think that church needs to be for anybody over the age of 33. That's why are y'all at church? There's no reason, nothing you can explain to me as to why we still preaching to anybody older than that. There's nothing we need to talk to y'all about. You 60-something years old, still in church. I don't care. Why are you there? If anything, we had this kid get killed, a drive-by shooting or whatever. Don't know who did it. I don't understand why we were at church on Sunday preaching about it. Why aren't we outside? The kids that we need at the church are outside playing on Sunday. Right. Why aren't y'all out there with them? I don't understand why we're at church. That makes no sense to me. At this point, with the conditions of our community right now, you cannot explain to me why we are at a church building looking at how terrible our communities look.
Well, we fresh in that joint though.
Fresh. Looking great. Looking great. The purses, the shoes, the hats, all that. When you post this, and I'll post it on my page too, I need everybody to explain to me why are you at church when our community look like they do? Because the people who need to be at the church are not there, and you ain't going to get them.
You brought up a great point, and I want to get back to it. I want to hear what RZA say. You brought up 2 great points I want to touch on. I want to hear RZA real quick.
Oh, y'all done set it off with this one, man.
It's getting kicked off the end of the day, bro.
It was beautiful. Oh, man. First thing I'll say, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has said all religion has failed. Said it one more time. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said all religion has failed, end quote, because Satan has been successful at infiltrating all religions, starting with the top 3 monotheistic religions or Abrahamic faith, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Although there may be people who do their best to practice certain principles, live their life out with certain principles, the collective clearly has not been as successful as they think. To the points of both of the brothers here, also to be incentivized to remain in a slave-like, victimized position has come through by ways of the FBI or faith-based initiative funding of churches, has come through by ways of only praying, not doing any actual work, only praying 5 times a day, face to the ground, not getting up, not changing your condition, not exercising, not providing any food, clothing, shelter, no jobs, no literacy programs, no drug education, none of that, but just praying, and Allah, God, the Most High, will do everything for you. And the other thing is, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan also mentioned that we should argue over religion after we're free. So the priority must be us getting to a level of freedom. That means we have the ability to change our condition. We have schools, we have hospitals, grocery stores. We have the ability to protect ourselves, defend ourselves. Our children are strong. Our finances are strong. Everything that we're doing is actually building the community rather than just praying, like I said, praying and hoping that some sky daddy, some random God is going to come out of nowhere to change our condition for us. And that's why also the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that my greatest followers are still in the streets. So we have to be in the street helping the people. It's literally, we're saying the same thing. We add in different ingredients to this pot because the reality is, again, we can walk around and call ourselves whatever we want to call ourselves, but the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has said, you are not what you profess, you are what you practice. So you can say whatever the hell you want to say, but what are you doing? And what we are doing is not enough to change our own condition.
And I want to go back to what King said in regards to church has a similarity to social media. I think the people in church feel fulfilled as if they're doing something because they speak in the safety of their own group, like social media, like you're posting, but you're not doing anything. So I think it's the same psychology that's taking place.
Because them neurons is firing. When them neurons is firing, like if you hook somebody up in a sleep study, the thing that they think they do and the thing that they do, the same neurons fire off in their brain, so they feel like they did it. You mean?
That dopamine.
Question is, we have an elephant in the room that we can't blame on the white man, and it's called molestation, right? Why do you believe it's so rampant, and why are we collectively as a people so quiet about it? Because the way I look at it is this, man, it's just like, we speak about generational stuff. I don't think anything is more generational than molestation. Because it's very hard for a person who experiences that to bounce back. It's just the reality of it. They have offsprings. They struggle with their children. They struggle with their relationships. Their children struggle with their offspring and relationships from that activity that took them. And white dudes not raping most of the kids.
So I gotta add a caveat to that question. Are we saying as it relates to, because overall, if you're talking about convictions, it is mostly white males. If you're talking about
black children?
Oh, you said specifically
specifically black children, specifically black children.
All right.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
Yeah, specifically black children.
Granddaddies and uncles.
And
all these uncomfortable.
And teenagers too.
And most of these uncomfortable Thanksgivings we having. And I was talking, on a video previously about younger family members who have experienced that, experimenting on younger cousins, their brothers and sisters, whatever. I've had a student that I didn't know recently, his mom called me like 20 now, but she was like, she got like 6 kids. She's always working or whatever. Then she finds out that the son has given the little sister a STD, and this is just happening at home, and she had no clue, and then she's in like a rock and a hard place because she's like, okay, my son, this is my child, and he has to go to jail. Then I also got to support you know, my daughter too. Even another situation I talked about previously, you know, one of my students, and these are all young kids. And to be honest, I brought the conversation up before about young boys and young men, even with it happening with older women and young boys. I still like have yet to find anybody just in my regular circle who had been molested growing up, whether that been by a woman or a man or whatever. And so it's like we don't talk about it, or we'll say, oh, that's incestuous white people stuff. I'm like, no, incest happens in the black community every single day. And grandmamas know about it, and uncles and everybody. It's just we just stay away from Uncle Joe at the family reunion. I don't go around Uncle Joe. Or why ain't we reprimanding Uncle Joe? Like, why are we just allowing him to be around if we know he say little stuff to the little girls? Or like, why is that normal? Why is it acceptable, you know, in our community? So again, it's like, do we care about protecting our kids, you know? And then, you know, just looking at how many parents went through that, they're almost scared, you know, because of what Uncle Joe did to them and what he said was going to happen to them. So they just like, I'm going to just keep, you know, my kids away from him and scared to go around. I mean, it's a lot, you know, talking about molestation, but that is a huge issue in our community that we refuse to like truthfully address as much as we address the economics and the hospitals and this and that. I'm like, nah, let's talk about the family dynamic here in our community.
I think that's a big source because people are broken. And we have the system still, but a lot of people are broken because they were violated sexually.
I just think it's because people are afraid to be violent to people.
I agree.
You just got to be violent to people. Violence is an answer for a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? It's not the only answer, but when violence is the answer when it's the answer.
I agree.
And I think violence can be an amazing deterrent. I think that violence is something that if you were thinking about this and you didn't know that this was wrong, I'm talking about even from a children's perspective. If we see Uncle Joe get lit up, get beat up, get harmed, physically violated, that child recognizes a different lesson from that. Like publicly, I'm generally not a fan. Like I don't beat children, right? Me personally, my daughter don't have to, right? But adults, 100%, there should be some sort of violation. That you posted a video a couple of days ago. This dude ran up on the fruit, right?
Oh yeah, I saw that, man.
And I'm just like, yeah, this dude will never do that to anybody ever again. And it's just a good lesson. It's just a little bit of straightening. And I think it's going to sound like I'm kind of making a justification because I can always tie things back into government involvement in our community and turning it into something that need not be, right? So when you got government overreach into a community, when there was we got issues in the community, we deal with the issue. When you get more government involvement and people tapping into the government as opposed to the people in the community dealing with it, now even something as simple as reprimanding, and you can leave the children out of it. If we're talking about the adults, right? If we all just beat Uncle Joe up and there's nobody goes to jail because the state said you can't do that, I think we get some of those issues solved. So I'm always a fan of the individual accountability and the individual being held, you know, to the standard, but I'm also not going to let the government skate out of how they put things in the mix to make sure we're not really handling some of our own issues.
No, great point. In Jamaica, they call it jungle justice. You get what I'm saying? And you want to be reprimanded or held accountable for what you did to that person because you violated the program.
Right. Yeah. See, and I'll just mention it this way. When it comes to family business and things dealing with our family, it has only perpetuated this long because we haven't addressed it. Okay, so I know, for example, when it comes to certain family members, I've witnessed where a family member was reprimanded or held accountable publicly. Things changed after that. We became nervous because the government got involved, where people started getting arrested. When it's like, well, no, we don't necessarily want this person to get arrested, but we want to handle it, make an example, so that everybody else in the community knows not to do this. Okay, cool. But we know once the government gets involved, they are the ultimate, so-called negative side of things. Okay, because now they're going to potentially take somebody away, make money off of them being taken away, really destroy them in prison, and do a whole lot of things that wasn't a part of our original plan. So one thing is we have to take responsibility for our own children, our own women, and the men. In whatever way that needs to be done, it has to happen. We have had so many stop sex trafficking moves that we've done. We held a major rally in Atlanta where we were pushing to stop sex trafficking, stop the abuse of women, children, young boys, young girls, etc. And so many people had no idea that this was at a rate that was so high because it's not being talked about. It's a very real thing. And the other side of it is too many people are benefiting from it outside and inside. So you have women who are involved in pimping these girls, helping to encourage them to go into sex trafficking. You have men who are the old school version of it, but if you want to be very frank and real about it, we can handle what's happening in the present, but we also have to also simultaneously educate about how it came about in the past. Right. So you have to learn about the history of the MFer. Right. What happened to us, how they put a paper bag over the black man's head and forced him to have sex with his own mother to make more studs, more children for the slave master. We have to learn about how they would literally have little boys, little girls dance around each other on the plantation to get them enticed into sexual behavior, sexual activity, and how the slave master would also have bed warmers, little girls, little boys come into his bed to warm the bed, and then of course he'd do whatever he wanted to with them. So that traumatic circumstance does carry down, and scientists have now looked at the fact of something called epigenetics, where it transfers down through the DNA of the people. So there are certain traumatic things that many of us may not have gone through personally, but on our DNA, our ancestors have gone through it, and it affects us to this very day because of what they experienced yesterday. So there are a number of things we have to address, but as far as what's happening in the present, yeah, it has to be seen publicly that you need to address this person. No, you can't come around the family until you absolutely atone, apologize. After you get these hands put on you, you're going to get whooped in front of everybody because that's the punishment. Right. We don't want to kill you. We don't want to end your life, but we want to get close enough to where you understand that that is wrong. Right. It is absolutely wrong. So again, per capita in the black community, it is something, it's a virus now that has infected a lot of our people. And again, because too many people have either been involved with it themselves, affected by it themselves when they were younger, to where that's why they don't want to really address it, but it has to be done. And then I believe other people will respect us a whole lot more.
And I want to hear what you have to say about this also. We agree that this generation is over-sexualized, and I understand they have more access to porn and other things. But do you think because the molestation is so high, that's playing a role why the children are so over-sexualized?
I think it's a recycling bin logo. It's a chicken or the egg, and it's like this feeds into this and feeds into that and feeds into this. And if you don't have an extreme disease, extreme treatment, if you don't have an extreme stop, it's just going to create, then the person is molested, then they're molested, now they're over-sexualized. It's like almost like we can't deny that the feeling of the sexual feeling feels good. And if a person doesn't understand that because they're young, now they feel good, but it's weird. Now they're over-sexualized, now they over-sexualize somebody else. So we can have a chicken or the egg conversation, but I just think that there are entities and beings that are deliberately doing things to make sure that the recycling bin logo continues, and that's the part that we got had an extreme, treatment for.
Yeah, it's definitely something we have to do something called correction and proper education at the same time. So the things that will be corrected and properly educated. For example, we can't have artists out here promoting sex all day long, knowing that the end result is more than likely diseases, broken homes, perpetuation of trauma, etc. It has to be educated properly and then corrected. We have to make it clear that you will not promote in the house or out of the house things that have literally contributed to the destruction of our people. It has to be put in proper context. So we can't co-sign one person, approve one over here, but then say, well, no, when it comes to the house, I don't like what's going on. Well, what she is saying, what he's saying, what they're saying is literally a product of that, and it's going to create more of that. We have to address the amount of STDs. We have to address the amount of broken families. We have to address the fact that some women let their daughters and encourage their daughters to do the sexual stuff. We have to address the fact that some men encourage the boys to do that. We have to always, from now on, address it head on, again, or else it's going to perpetuate. And really, the government side of this is they're clapping because they want us to take ourselves out through our own pleasures. So they push the STDs out there, many that were created, some, rarely some, that were mutations in nature, but for the vast majority, created, and they want us to perpetuate that so that we can die out because the ultimate agenda is depopulation. So our own traumas are being used for our self-destruction.
You know what that made me think about? Why was Sexy Red invited to a school? like to this thought process, right? Like then you say, oh, she can't come in here because she smells like weed. So her message and what she was talking about, that's not adult, is not child friendly. Y'all said, yeah, come talk to the kids. Talk to the kids about what? So this is where I mean, like, okay, someone sanctioned from the state said we are aware of what this person's catalog is. Someone from a school at a school board said, you know what? Bring her on out.
Yeah, and what's the motive?
Right.
What about the taste of the consumer? We criticize the people that produce the content. But what about the people that consume it? Because there has to be a market and a profitability there for me to put my energy into that.
Not
so,
really though.
I want to hear.
No, the best-selling hip hop artists in the last 7, 8, 9 years have been three people, hip hop. Best-selling: Drake, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole. None of them overtly, especially maybe Drake here and there, Lover Boy music, but overtly they not like, yo, you gotta whoop-de-whoop.
But the question I would ask is, what is their fan base and who's consuming their music? Is it
I-
more a white person vibe or is it the black community?
Whoever's buying it, the vast majority of the sales, even though they're not getting tremendous pushes like Sexy Red would be, and not to attack her, she's doing whatever she's doing. She's a sister, right? But even with all of that, Cole show up, Kendrick show up like when they got an album and they go away. They're still outperforming in the sales than all of the debauchery. I am of the belief that those other people are getting pushed. It's not, because if it was the thirst of the consumer, they would be having equal sales. They're not. I think that there's obviously a propaganda machine going, this is who you actually like. These people can't rap. Drake, Jay, they can rap. Cole, Kendrick can rap. These other people, they are in alignment with an investment move. But I got other investments going on. You just one of them, put them out there. You know what I'm saying? I contend that it's not the taste of the people. I think if I get on a camera and make it look like it's 1 million people and it's really 7, and then I make it look that way, then it's like, oh, and then it just appears that way. The sales do not reflect it. The City Girls album, you don't even know the name of it.
No, never
heard. Right?
Yeah.
They might have that one single, but they not hitting the numbers. So I believe that it's like, yo, put this thing in your face so we can get secure bags and investments over here. But the consumer generally, they're telling you the #1 selling albums have nothing to do with that.
See, and to his point, the propaganda machine literally is pushing to destroy the family dynamic. They're investing a lot of money in it, a lot of time in it. The reality is, as you said, no, the numbers don't reflect it. The talent doesn't reflect it because the people's taste buds are now starting to taste what this crap really is. See, when you force feed somebody something, eventually they start to throw up. Yeah. Because it's like, whoa. Yeah, I can taste it. Right now, Sexy Red, it's obvious that she was pushed along with a lot of other people. Again, we love our people. Many of them are very ignorant to the fact that they're being used. They think that, oh man, this money coming in, these contracts coming in, these new gigs are coming in, they must like it. No, the reality is you are being used for an agenda. The consumer is being told what to consume. The people are easily led in the wrong direction, hard to lead into the right direction. They don't even know what they like half the time. But if they get bombarded with the propaganda over and over again, like this, eventually they're going to like it. What did Joseph Goebbels say? I believe he was a chief propagandist under Adolf Hitler. He said, if you tell a lie big enough, long enough, the people will come to believe it. And the same thing happens when it comes to music. Same thing happens when it comes to fashion. You put a big paper bag over your whole body and say, this is new fashion, it's $1,000. People are going to say, well, damn, I'm going to pay $1,000 because that's fashion. No, it's a big paper bag. Right. He must be crazy if you're going to wear that. You see what I'm saying? So we have to make it to where the people, which they are doing now, and if you read the comments under the majority of these posts, when it comes to a lot of these artists, they like garbage, hot garbage. Why are they pushing this person? What's going on? That's why I have a lot of these new artists who they're not even able to make it to 3 years. Right. Because they never had the real motive, and they were also given false hope and this false sense of, I'm actually doing something real good. I got some substance, when they don't. They were purposely put there. They were purposely manipulated to believe that the negative they're pushing out is what the people want. That's why a lot of them are quitting from Saweetie all the way down. A lot of them, their album sales are terrible. And they're also trying to keep them afloat by having them go and visit the White House or go to certain schools. And the people are like, that's not a black representative. There may be a black artist, maybe, but that's not somebody who represents us. So again, we love our people, regardless of the artists and all that, but we have to always remember the fact that when this system is trying to control a people, they use the artists and the leaders to do it, and they manipulate the people to believe that that's who you should follow. Right. That's how this is going right now. Right. I'm speak from the arena of children. I will say, and I'll speak for my area, I guess. And most of the children I come into contact with, they hate our artists. Drake, J. Cole, people we listen to, they hate their guts. They're like, oh, that's trash or whatever like that. Who they love, to is the people that we're talking about now. Sexy Red, NBA YoungBoy, they can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Or even some other underground artists. Like I follow my students on social media on purpose just to see what they're doing and listening to or whatever. And the stuff I'm hearing, like these are unknown artists. They're finding underground artists that are talking about just straight debauchery. But that's what they like to hear. They like NBA YoungBoy. None of them live in his lifestyle, but they love the baby mamas and they love the whole shtick of what he talks about. So they try to live like that. Like what I believe happens is, especially with parents and what's just going on right now, we forget. I don't think we understand how much impact our kids are going to have on our nation in 10 to 15 years, which is why I work with kids so hard. And I'm just like, one of the biggest mistakes I feel like our civil rights leaders made was not training replacements. And that's where we messed up at. That's where immediately after the civil rights generation, the 80s, 90s or whatever, because they're responsible for raising the debauchery right now or whatever. But that generation or whatever, grandma's crack epidemic, blah, 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 or whatever, all of that happened because nobody had trained no replacements in that time. So nobody was in that group like making sure everything was straight or whatever. On top of that, letting go of shaming. Shaming used to be a thing, and it needed to be a thing. And so now, now everything is just accept every single thing that happens. Don't do this to your child. Allow your child to. No, my child is not going to make that decision. He's 5. Right. He don't understand nothing. So I'm going to tell you this is what's going to happen. No, you don't have no feelings today. No, this is what's going to happen. Right. He plays baseball. He asked me to play baseball, but he's sleepy for one game, so he's like, I don't want to play. Oh, his mom was like, okay, we can go home. No, we are not. Right. You made a commitment. You are going to play. If I were to post that on social media, oh, you're trying to force him into blah, 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 because a lot of people care too much about what folks have to say, and they post everything. So when you posting your whole life and everybody's giving you their advice, you're not living to how you were raised or living to how you think you should. Well, so now you just allowing your kids to do whatever. Now your kids got social media because all the other kids got social media. And you don't realize, and I tell parents all the time, go check your kids' phone. I do that every podcast I go on. Go check your kids' phone right now. They're meeting up with people you don't know they're meeting up with. They're talking to people you don't know they're talking to. They're sending nude photos back and forth. They're smoking, etc. Yes, your little Jimmy that you raised all nice, who you let make all the decisions in his life, is doing all this crazy stuff. And this is all of them. Like all of them are doing craziness, and a lot of it is being perpetuated from them being allowed to utilize social media. What's happening on socials with the algorithms, etc., is being done on purpose for those kids. Those kids are consuming debauchery, so that's all they're showing them on socials, to the point where now they're just seeing OnlyFans girls twerking. Like I just go look at their phone. Let me look at your Instagram Explore page. Your Explore page will expose who you are. That's who you are. So when you look at their Explore, all you see is girls twerking and blah, blah, blah. Of course, you're going to get into OnlyFans, watching porn, blah, blah. So these kids 11, 12, all they want to do is smoke. They want to post pictures of them smoking. And I'm texting them. I'm like, look, bro, if you want to smoke, bro, listen, handle your business. Stop posting it. Like, what is the point? Like, why? You only got 2 followers. Like, who are you trying to look cool for? Nobody cares. Smoking for yourself. Right. But this is 14, 15-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds. I've even taken my age groups down in our organization because I felt like I had been wasting my last 5 years working with kids that I thought weren't too far gone yet. And kids right now are losing themselves at like 8, and they're gone. When I say gone, I mean they out of here. No matter what, So it's like you're trying to, okay, let me go back and figure something out. But I'm talking about these 14, 15-year-olds, bro, they out of here. So now my thing now is, okay, let me teach them a couple skilled trades. Let me make sure they can go make some money, and then life ends up having to teach them. So like some of the kids I worked with for the past 5 years, they're getting older now. Some in college. And they'll call back and be like, man, the stuff you was trying to tell me at the time, it was fantastic, whatever, and now it's showing in life. But they got kids now, and they done messed up. Life had to teach them in that fashion. No matter how much advice I was giving them, no matter how much I was showing them, they had already been tainted. So then I had some little younger kids coming to the org, 7, 8 years old. These kids, they ain't been tainted yet. They making all A's in school. They want to do their work. They don't care what people have to say. So now I'm character building on top of those kids who haven't been broken or whatever. So it's easy to work them up. I said the other day, the only kids that I can name out of my program, it's probably 3 kids in my program out of the 5 years that I've been working that I can say represent my org. Why do they represent my org? Those kids were blessed in by their older brothers. I never allow any kids younger than 11 unless their older brothers were in. The only kids who truly represent everything that we taught, character building, etc., are those kids who started at 7 and 8. My star student started when he was like 7 years old. He embodies our program. I'm talking about to the T. He don't even have to come around that much, but because I gave him so much at that time versus his brother, they're completely opposite. Or whatever, he's in college and trying to figure things out. But I know for a fact he's going to be an upstanding young man, and he's never wavered. So it's like we keep forgetting about kids, like to a point where we don't talk about them as much as I would like for us to talk about them, or even aim at them. Because who's aiming at them? The NBA young boys, etc. The ones who ain't selling albums like that. The kids are listening to them because our group, I'm gonna listen to Drake and Lil Wayne, whatever. They don't care about them. They want NBA young boys, and I'm gonna ride around the block and blow your head off, and I'm gonna take your girl. I got 10 baby mamas and blah 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 blah. They love that.
But you know what?
So,
I think they like it because of the repetition. I'm always careful to not let the system slip out and get away from their involvement.
I agree. Of course.
Right? So like, okay, let's look at the list of people that we talked about, right? I in the gym listen to drug dealer music. Like it's murder, death, kill in the gym. Right? It's 100%.
Same a little bit, same.
Right. It's like, you know what I mean? In the gym, because we have filtration systems as to your point of life happening.
Yeah, we're more mature.
Right.
We understand. Yep.
I'm saying they do like it, but I'm saying if you don't have the elders, or to them, their elders, around to direct and course correct, the system is literally doing the same thing that they used to do back in the day with Joe Camel cigarettes. They used to put the ads when you walk into the store, the little refrigerator in the store, that the Camel cartoon ads will be low to their eye line. It was at their eye line.
Yes.
So there was psychology. It wasn't just like, oh, this is the only place we have to put the thing. It was, we want young people, to King Randall's point, we want to get these young people on death early on, and we want to use a cartoon character to do it. The system does the same thing in the algorithm why a school teacher would say, let's bring Sexy Red to this school. The thought process has already been corrupted because the spell is deep and it works. So since the spell is deep and it works, and if you're not active in those extremely young people's lives, they're going to be gone faster and sooner, and the system skates by looking like it's without a trace. It's just the children just happen to like these songs.
Another problem to add on it, another part is that the room for correction is smaller, right? So you don't have like these 10 years to get your life together like you did previously, even economically, because you need more skills. There's less stability in the workforce, right? And things are much more expensive. So I think that's the issue with these kids. I think the previous generation, why they don't see it as such an extreme situation now, because they're basing it on themselves. Like, man, I ain't really graduated college, bro. I'm here doing whatever. But it's like there were more opportunities for you compared to this generation, you know? I think you have to be very smart, even hustling. I had a conversation with my boy about hustling, right? And like, in this modern time, I knew a lot of dudes that weren't the smartest dudes that was getting bread, but I think in this modern time right now, you need to be pretty smart to get bread illegally.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say it this way. The biggest thing, of course, psychologically is they're pushing it. Everything's being pushed heavily. The children are listening to people who are ignorant themselves. These are grown children, right? So these are the people, like you said, who were born from those who didn't teach them the right way, didn't give them the right information. And also when it comes to the artists in particularly, I was on Drink Champs with Noriega. And I mentioned this to him because he said, I don't like these little niggas. This is what Noriega said. He said, I don't like them. I can't stand them. He said they think they better than everybody, you know, and all that, because now you have teenagers becoming millionaires.
All right, everybody, we're back. Now, we're coming to the closing broadcast, and hopefully this time we got it right. I'm going to see, and if it ain't right, then I'm going to deal with it first thing in the morning. I'm going to give up on this thing. We're going to run the show twice, and I'm going to see what the technical difficulties are, okay?
fire, flood, tornado, hurricane. The damage they can cause to your home is devastating. But there's another disaster that strikes when you least expect it. I'm talking about your own insurance company when they deny your claim. If you believe your homeowner's insurance isn't paying what they should, let the lawyers at Farah & Farah review your policy word for word for free. Farah & Farah, here for you, here for good. Jacksonville.
You're at a bar looking for a new beer when you smell a citrusy aroma. It smells like sunshine and oranges. You see the bartender pouring a beer that looks refreshing. Only one problem. You have no clue how to pronounce the name. Jayalai? Is that even English? The bartender is now heading your way. As you're about to order nice cold Jayalai, you hear, "Can I get a High Life?" High Life, the best beer you probably can't pronounce.